What's going on, everybody? It's your boy PTK Blam back in the building with another episode of the Shop Podcast. How are all you beautiful people doing this Saturday evening, man? Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Already seeing some familiar faces in chat. Chat is already going crazy, so I appreciate you guys hanging out with us, man. As you guys can see, we got a fresh guest, but I'll get into that for in a minute. I do want to give you guys a lot of praise, man. The last episode was this has been probably the biggest month for the Shop Podcast ever. The last 4 weeks. So shout out to everybody in chat, all the support, the new subscribers, the new energy, everybody in chat. You guys are fucking amazing. You know, this is why we do this every single week. And I greatly support you guys, and you guys greatly put that support back here on us. So thank you. Thank you. I can't say that enough, but shout out to everybody in chat. You guys are amazing, but I don't want to spend too much time on the pleasantries, man. We got to get to the guests, get to these topics. We got a great show lined up. Let me give a couple quick shout outs. General Spartan. What's up, Shonsu? Still Rain, Tom, Andrew, everybody hanging out, man. But appreciate you guys, and retweet that link. Let them know we live Shop Podcast. We do this every single Saturday, man. Have a good time coming here, kick your feet up. But we got a phenomenal guest, man. I was hyped for this. I've been hyped all week since he hit me back and said, "Yeah, man, I am ready to go." We've been talking for a couple weeks now, but I just got to say a couple things before you get into your whole spiel, Dutch. So I want to put it out there. There's a few content creators that I respect on a different level, and the reason I say this is because Dutch is one of the few content creators that actually he kind of is a glue that holds a community together. You know, he does a lot of different things, and he'll get in all of that. But one of my favorite content creators, just super creative, super intelligent. One of my favorite gamers as well. But let everybody know where they can find you, Dutch. And I appreciate you being here, man. Thank you for hanging out with us, man.
Yeah, appreciate the kind words. It's awesome to be on. Of course, like I said, I'm making exceptions to come on to certain shows, especially as late as it is over here. Because at the moment, for everybody in chat that's wondering, it's 2 a.m., so it's a late start.
Yeah.
So I make exceptions to come on to awesome shows like this one. So no, it's great to be here. You can find me everywhere at Wondering Dutch, of course. YouTube, every podcast place now. So we're on all the audio platforms, on Twitter at Wondering Dutch. Of course, home of the Midweek Mix-Up podcast, where we've had, of course, awesome Pong Soul on before. Probably get Fuzzy on at some point, and yourself as well, PTK. But again, time-wise, it's very hard to maneuver, as you know.
Oh yeah, definitely. So like I said, man, I appreciate you taking an extra time out, man. Got the Red Bulls lined up, man. You ready to go? We was talking pregame, but thank you, man. I appreciate it. And you guys do me a favor. Go follow Dutch. Go follow Midweek Mix Up. It's a conglomerate of podcasts, a conglomerate of gamers. You know, Dutch founded it. You know, he's kind of the glue that holds everything together there. So go, please show support. Go follow them. Shout out to you, Shonsu, for putting those links in chat, man. But thank you, Dutch, once again. And we're going to have a lot of fun today, man. And I can't wait to, at some point, get on Midweek Mix Up and, you know, have fun with you guys and the crew over there, man. But thank you for hanging out with us, man. So let me get to my two right-hand men here to make me look good every single week. We're going to start with you, Mr. Pong. So, Pong Harvey, how you been this week, brother?
Well, sliding in here at the start of the show. Yes. It's that time of the year. Yard work has to be done. The grass grew like 10 inches in the past week, like literally like doubled or tripled from last week. So it was time. I had to get the mower up and running. I've been working out in the garage all day. But I had to try my best to get in here. So thanks for patiently waiting for me. But first of all, Dutch, great to see you, brother. Coming off the huge Community Indie Showcase 2023, the first of a couple of them this year. Yeah, absolutely incredible. And of course, Steele and myself and Living Split Screen have been a part of the Midweek Mix-Up Collective pretty much almost since inception. Dutch hit us up very early on and asked us to join the crew over there, and just a great group of gamers. And Dutch obviously is putting together something special. So please, everybody, do go check him out and everything they've got going on over there. If you have not already, for sure. Dutch is absolutely incredible person, human being, and member of this community. And of course, great to see you, PTK, and Fuzzy, my brother. Listen, what a week. Really, we are back. It is Tears of the Kingdom launch week. Mm-hmm. Absolutely incredible, as we all expected.
Yes, sir.
Right? Nintendo showed up, did what they had to do, dropped a Game of the Year contender, probably the leader in the clubhouse as far as contenders go right now, with that score, with the praise that it is getting. But this was a part of what we said was going to happen if 2023 was going to be one of the GOATs and maybe the GOAT of all years for the entire gaming industry. The big players had to show up. Those big games had to hit the way that we expected them to. And guess what? Tears of the Kingdom did it. So shout out to everybody enjoying that game. As you all know, I have zero interest, but I'm happy for all of you that are getting it. I'm not one of those people that hates on something just because I have zero interest in it. I might joke around with people in the DMs and stuff, but overall, this is better for gaming when all the three big threes are hitting on all cylinders, right? That's what gaming is all about, and Nintendo did it. So congratulations to that. But of course, again, it's overshadowed because it's server slam weekend.
The mother
everybody,
showed up. Mom showed
yes, mother showed up. Hail Lilith. We are back into the game yet again, one final time before release. Diablo 4 server slam is off to a spectacular start. They have definitely made some changes. I know there are some people that are not happy, especially the Necro mains out there. I know you Necro mains are crying out in unison right now.
I love it.
Because,
cry, more tears.
Oh, they took your knees, they took your arms.
I love it.
You guys are down to a torso at this point right now with how they nerf Necro.
Listen,
I'm
a druid
sure.
guy. I had to hear all of that crap in the first beta. I don't
Yes,
want to hear
I
no
know.
more. So.
That's true. That is true, PTK. But I'm sure Rod, for anybody who doesn't know, Mr. Rod Ferguson, he is a Necro main. He is playing Druid right now. Somebody hit him up on Twitter because he posted it out, and he said, I'm going to hop into Necro tomorrow and see what everybody's talking about. So I assume they will tinker with Necro prior to launch because if this many people are crying about it, it's got to be pretty bad.
Like Destiny all over again.
Yeah, yeah. Lord. Well, this is what happens. You guys know Division. Come on, man. We know what goes on. But yeah, they overcorrected. But no, the server slam is going great. Fantastic. No queues. Jumping in. Already level 20. I hit 19 and a half last night. I had about 30 minutes today. While I was doing stuff, hopped in, got myself to level 20. Now it's just about grinding out for some legendaries because the legendary grind, for all you who thought we were going to get some Diablo 3 or like the early betas where legendaries were dropping every which way like candy, that's not going to be the case anymore, folks. We're back to the Diablo 2 legendary grind, and it is real. So I've got to grind out, get some legendaries, and go after a Shava so I can get that horse mount, or the horse trophy, I should say. But yeah, having a great time in there. Man, it's the golden age, man. This is just so beautiful. So having a great time, PTK, but we got a lot to get into. I've rambled enough. Let's get down to the show.
All right, shout out to you, Pong, man. The battery of the shop podcast, always bringing that energy every week, no matter whether he's doing yard work or anything else. It's always bringing that energy here at the shop podcast, man. So I'm going to throw this over to you, Mr. Fuzzy Belvedere, the smooth operator. How you doing this week, brother?
Doing pretty good, man. Just enjoying the server slam as well. Been playing that, some Horizon 5, some Division, some Undisputed. I got to dive back into Last Case of Benedict Fox because world credits on Ravenlock and Jedi Survivor. So I'm going to try to finish some games instead of hopping from one game to the next and then not finishing them or going back. But other than that, glad to be here. Glad we got Wandering Dutch on tonight. Awesome to have you on this show. Man, not really a Nintendo fan, but much respect to those that are enjoying Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
So, kudos to those fans, but man, it's just heating up, and got my notice that I got tickets for FanFest. So I'm trying to figure out if I'm actually going to go this
That's awesome,
time,
bro. Congrats,
or if
man.
I'm going to sit this one out. But man, got a lot to get into. Can't wait to do it. Let's get into it.
All right, man, let's get into it. And I'm not jealous, by the way. Yes, I am. But anyway, no, shout out to you, man. Congrats on winning the FanFest tickets. That is so awesome, man. But he's right. We do got a lot to get into today. And shout out to everybody in chat, Sergeant Sentinel, General Spartan, everybody, man. Appreciate you guys. Like I said earlier, retweet that link out. We got a whole lot to talk about. Got a lot of topics today, man. But we are going to get into the poll of the week, man. You guys know how we start the show. If you're new here, poll of the week up every single Monday on my Twitter account. All of that information is in the description below. Go follow me there. Want to take part in that. Seems to be getting better and better every week. then we talk about it here on Saturday, man. So this is actually a fun one because I didn't think it would go this direction. And it's always cool when the poll doesn't agree with what I initially make it. So it's always awesome. So poll of the week this week was, which Japanese publisher has the best relationship with Xbox? We had three options. We had Capcom, Bandai Namco, and Sega. And Sega ran away. 71% of the voters said Sega. So that I thought it would be a bit more even. But we're going to start with you, Dust. We starting cold. We're going to throw you right into the fire. Okay, so I don't know if you voted on the poll. If you didn't, which of the three options, which one would you choose? Which one has the best relationship, in your opinion, with Xbox?
Yeah, it's Sega. It's always been Sega.
Okay.
Ever since the inception of the Dreamcast, and obviously Microsoft's involvement on getting the Dreamcast up and running and out in the wild and helping development on the Dreamcast itself before the Xbox One launched. Yeah, that's the main reason. It's their strong relationship from way back in the day, which is why Sega have that stronger relationship with Xbox.
Okay. So I agree in one part. I didn't even go that route because I forgot. I didn't even go back that far, but you're absolutely right. Since the Dreamcast, they have had a pretty good relationship. Let's be honest though, Dutch, for a little while, it's been shaky. It's been hit or miss, off and on. It's been like a long distance kind of relationship. Like, I'm gonna call you and then we don't talk for a year and then I'll see you next year kind of thing. Like, it's been pretty sporadic. So that's why I didn't initially choose Sega. Now I'm thinking about it though. They do have the longest history with Sega though, as far as the relationship between the two. My choice would have been Bandai because I feel like really they kind of were there for Xbox at their lowest point. And that was Xbox during the Xbox One generation, in my opinion. Now, some people would argue the Red Ring of Death was probably worse, but I think Xbox One, for the image, that generation was probably their lowest point, and Bandai was still working with them. They didn't take games away. They didn't do all that funny stuff. Matter of fact, they're one of the few companies, Japanese companies, still doing like that. They had like exclusive deals with marketing rights, Jump Force, all that kind of stuff. So I gave the nod to Bandai Namco, and they still have a pretty good working relationship. And it was one of the companies that I thought if they would have purchased one of the three, I like their games more than the other two. I'm probably in the minority there, but what would you think about Bandai? Would they be second place for you, maybe, or?
Yeah, I would probably say second place. I think the reason Sega kind of tailed off a bit as well is because they went down the route of doing pachinko machines for quite a while. So
that is true. That is true.
So yeah, they kind of tailed off in a different direction, and now it's good to see because Sega are starting to come back into the fray a little bit more, and they are starting
Persona,
to
all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, and they did really tail off. Like outside of being like very Japanesey, that kind of tailed off and went quite quiet, and we thought like, where are Sega really like these days? Now it's kind of we're seeing them kind of really pumping up the numbers again and get back into things with the likes of Sonic, etc., and going in depth with Sonic Frontiers and making a brand new games to really jump out and on the consoles again. So shout out to them. I'm glad they're coming back. We need all these big historic companies to kind of be still in the mix. So yeah, I would say Bandai Namco third. I would definitely say Capcom last. They've definitely been more on the PlayStation front throughout the years.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, it would definitely be Sega, then Bandai Namco, and then Capcom for me.
Okay. And once again, chat, let us know how you guys feel about this too. The poll of the week is for you guys as well. So let me know in the chat what you guys voted, which one you voted for, who was first, second, or third, or otherwise. And shout out to everybody coming through as well, man. We're gonna throw this over to you, Pong. I don't know if you voted, Pong. I have an idea who I thought you would vote for, but I'll let you do all of that, man. So where you at on this poll this week?
Oh yeah, I'm with Dutch. It's got to be Sega first. Again, their history,
right?
Now their history, and then on top of recency as well, because now you've got them in partnership with Microsoft working on their big new whatever it's called, the super duper big game program, whatever the hell they're doing. It was something like that. So they're working on that with them, and then we saw, and people tried to poo-poo that and said that's just a business relationship, and we all on a lot of our podcasts came out and said, no. This is Sega and Xbox renewing a friendship, and we're going to see some benefits out of it as Xbox players. And lo and behold, the game that was never going to ever show up on Xbox, the developer who has held firm and never put their games on Xbox except for way back on the 360, and it was only a couple of them. Atlas all of a sudden opens up the front gates, and here comes Persona on over into Xbox. And I think it was a much bigger deal at the end of the day. And I don't think they're done. I think we're going to see a lot more of that partnership flourish as the years go by. And again, once this ABK stuff is over with, who knows? Could become Xbox East, right? Sega Xbox, whatever you want to call it. So, I definitely got to say Sega first. Now, Bandai Namco is a close second. Bandai Namco has continued to strengthen their relationship with
we might
Xbox.
have another surprise this year too.
Yeah, might have that extra surprise this year. They do owe Xbox One for the Elden Ring stuff. So, again, if we do see that Armored Core 6 wind up on the Xbox stage, day one in Game Pass, you'll know why. Bandai Namco, hey, look, they gave Xbox Scarlet Nexus, which was one of their new RPGs, JRPGs. And I know they didn't give it to them. Let's be real. Xbox paid for it. But the fact is that Bandai Namco is one of those Eastern companies that has seemingly figured out what it means to be a game company in the 2020s, right? We see a lot of bad examples like Square Enix. They're rocking out like it's 1990s all over again, and we're just gonna do our own thing, and we're just gonna put our games in one place. And you saw the earnings report this week, folks, down again. But we've seen other companies, Bandai Namco and Capcom, both turn that corner and figure things out. And the more places that you put the games, the better your games do, the bigger your audiences get. And lo and behold, both those companies are off to a fantastic start this generation with both PlayStation and Xbox. So, I would put Bandai a close second, but Sega definitely has got the number one spot locked.
Awesome. And I want to double back too on something. Throw this back to Dutch real quick before we get over to Fuzz. But like he said, maybe looking in the future, I know this is unrelated to the specific poll, but looking in the future, do you think that relationship with Sega is going to continue to grow? Same thing with Bandai, because, we're looking at these three options, and Capcom, like I said, I think we all agree that they probably will be third on the list, but specifically Sega, do you think that relationship is going to continue to be fruitful? I don't know how much you're on the train of maybe Xbox goes out and grabs Sega, but what do you think about that specific relationship and where they're at currently with Sega?
Yeah, I think, well, if you have a look at what Sega's kind of intentions are, is they want to kind of expand on a technological front. They don't just want to stand there and make games all the time. They want to kind of expand what games are and what they can do with them. So as Pong mentioned there, that kind of use of cloud and use of technology in order to enhance the next game or the next metaverse kind of game that they're creating. That's the reason they're kind of, I think, working very closely with Xbox and Microsoft going forward. So I only assume that the relationship will continue to grow on a technological standpoint. Now, I can't mention the same for both Bandai or Capcom, because they aren't in the same boat. They're not looking to kind of enhance their games on a technological front. Whereas Sega are, and I think Sega as a company are also looking at more ways to kind of expand on the games that they create. So to do that, they have to partner with a company that has the technology to do so. And who better than a platform that is both a gaming platform and one of the largest tech companies in the world, if not the largest?
Good point. Good breakdown on that too. So we're going to go ahead and throw this over to Fuzz and just get your opinion on the poll of the week here, Fuzz. And once again, everybody voted Sega. And like I said, I didn't even consider the long history of Sega. I was really looking at like maybe the last gen or two, for me personally. But it is absolutely true that they do have the longest relationship of the three. But go ahead. Where you at on the poll, man? Which one did you vote for?
I went in a completely different direction, because the past is the past. What Sega did with Sega and Xbox together, I mean, it took forever to get Yakuza on there, and then it took even longer to get Persona. So I don't consider that relationship that great. I mean, yes, they have a long storied history, but I look at Capcom, that's the one I voted, because if you look at all the games, even when Xbox doesn't have marketing, what system does it run better on? They're the only ones that actually push the hardware or actually utilize the tools for Xbox, even when the other guys have the marketing rights. So if you look at like Devil May Cry or any of the Resident Evils, which system did it run better on? It ran better on Xbox every time. Even though, well, Devil May Cry 5, I think they had the marketing rights for Xbox, but But with Resident Evil, even with the marketing rights over on PlayStation, it ran better. And when you look at things like Dead Rising, even though, yeah, there was that one time where, they caved in and gave Street Fighter over to PlayStation, which they'll probably never do again, considering how long it took that thing to reach, I think, 5 million. I think it took over 5 years to reach that for Street Fighter, which is kind of silly. But yeah, I went in the other direction just because they seem to be the only ones that will not worry about the parity aspect. It's like, if your hardware can do it, we're going to program for it. Like Exoprimal day one in Game Pass. You got Monster Hunter, which it came over to Xbox, I think, after coming to Nintendo. I think we had Monster Hunter World come to Game Pass the day it was not on Nintendo anymore, when it was available on other platforms. And then Monster Hunter Rise came to Game Pass day and date as well. So I view the more recent stuff as the more of the barometer for the relationship. So I voted Capcom just because of what they've done for us lately.
Okay, that's a fair assessment, and I didn't consider that either with Capcom. I think the Street Fighter thing kind of hurt me so much, and when you really think about that, for real, like the Street Fighter thing killed me. That Street Fighter 5, it didn't make any sense. It killed me, bro. I don't even think you understand how much that just threw me off. But I don't know. I just feel like, man, I can't get over the fact that during that period of time during the Xbox, that first 3 years, they still were, they still Jump Force, and they had a bunch of games they were still putting on Xbox, and they had a couple exclusives on Xbox. And now the only thing with them is that they publish more games than they actually make themselves. So, it's kind of weird, with Bandai, but good choice either way, man. And once again, that was a poll of the week, man. Just a warm up topic, the quick jog here. Shout out to Mav too in chat, man. Appreciate you, brother. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next topic. We got a lot to cover. This is a big week for gaming, and I'm ready to go, man. So we're gonna get into some Zelda stuff. We're gonna get this out of the way, bro. All right, the Zelda stuff. So obviously, if you have not been living under a rock, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom dropped like a megaton bomb. Like, I don't think any of us didn't think it was going to be this big, right? Dutch, anybody? I don't think anybody thought the game was going to be like a pebble in a pond. We knew it was going to be as big as it was. We knew it was going to be as praised as it is. So it kind of hit where I thought it was going to hit. Now, for me personally, Zelda Ocarina of Time is my favorite game of all time, Dutch. Bar none, not even close on any console. So Zelda holds a special place in my heart, but there are some reservations. I haven't played the game, but there are some things that we'll get to, and I'll talk about here a little bit later on. But I want to get your genuine opinion. You have been playing it. We talked about it pregame. Where you at on the game? Does it live up to all the rave reviews? Just where you at personally?
I'll never say it lives up to the rave reviews, because I never agree that I never really agree on a critical point that games are 10 out of 10s. Because there's no game I feel, it's in personal opinions, you can say a game is a 10 out of 10 if you exclude some fundamental issues in the game, because it doesn't detract from the story or the experience, in which case then I say, okay, I can understand why somebody would say it's 10 out of 10, but from a critical perspective, a game cannot be a 10 out of 10. If you have a look at some of the basic things that Nintendo don't do right in some of their games, and this is just, and I think purely from a funding perspective, what they're willing to spend on one and what they're not. The voiceover thing is absolutely apparent that is just a choice by Nintendo to not pay for the voice actors to do full voiceover work throughout the entire game. There's certain sections, you've got awesome little cutscenes in this game where it's really well voice acted, and you've got some cool characters and a great story. And to be honest, so far from playing Tears of the Kingdom, the story's much more apparent, and it has a much better direction in it in Tears of the Kingdom than it did Breath of the Wild. And the cutscenes do a much better job at portraying that as well. But then it takes you out of that experience when, as soon as that little cutscene section with lovely voiceovers finishes, you go back to them just mumbling noises and then text on the screen. So it's like, oh yeah, and then Zelda, you have to go and do this, and then all of a sudden, just screen dips into like a non-cutscene animation. The characters are still there, and they go.
But Dutch, that's part of the charm. Come on, man.
Yeah, come on. It breaks it completely. it just breaks the immersion. Like it's like, oh, really? Like you had something really good going there. You just keep that voiceover going into the actual game when you've got these characters on screen for a very limited period of time anyway, because they're not there for long. They're there for like 30 seconds at a time when they are on screen. So you may as well do a little bit of voiceover. You get some really low grade voiceover guys for the little NPCs and things that are around town. You don't need to have like uber expensive voice actors for that. You can get the little guys that are coming in trying to do their first bit of work or something like that. It's something that they're just refusing to pay for. It's just Nintendo kind of penny pinching, as it were. But then you have a look at the fundamental things. But this is where I also have to kind of put my foot down as well on the one side and say Nintendo have never been the guys that have tried to claim power. They've never been the ones to go out and claim performance.
True.
They just simply mandate great games. And that's what they produce. Every game that comes out is a great game. There is no ifs or buts about it. Splatoon's great. Animal Crossing's great. You've got like Mario Kart, which is always awesome. Kirby was great. Like everything they put onto that platform is actually a great game. And there is no like ifs or buts about it. Naturally, they do have performance issues. They do have texture issues. They are extremely limited in what they can do, but that's purely down to the fact that Nintendo just refused to invest in quality hardware. It's good hardware. It ships mass amounts, but they want to make the best they can with the limited amount of funds and make the most amount of profits. That's just a company-wide perspective from Nintendo. And we'll see that again in the next one. I said that before the show.
You did. Giving out little tidbits there, Dutch.
Yeah. Next one that'll launch will be the hardware will still be 2 years out of date when it launches. It'll be a step up from the Switch, no doubt, but it'll definitely be out of date. But that's because they want to have more headroom. And Nintendo are very much a platform that still requires profit making on consoles in order to survive. It still requires unbelievable headroom on games in order to survive, because unlike Xbox and PlayStation, they don't have a massive online network that kind of funds them every month. Yes, they've got a little one now, but it's £3, like $4 a month for their online service. That's not gonna it's not gonna do anything for them. It really isn't gonna do nothing for them. And they don't really provide anything on that service as well, outside of like emulated stuff that gets you to kind of go for that. So it is what it is on that front. In terms of the game itself, though, Tears of the Kingdom is absolutely a step up from Breath of the Wild. I bounced off of Breath of the Wild after about 6 hours. It just wasn't for me. There was no direction. The gameplay was all right, but it didn't really. There was no real charm about it for me personally to keep playing that game. But I've already put about 7 or 8 hours into Tears of the Kingdom, so that shows you how much of a difference that has made this time around, where weapon degradation isn't anywhere near as bad now. You find a lot more of the weapons out in the wild. You're not just hitting people with sticks forever. You've got this awesome crafting ability that allows you to combine weapons. So if you get a sword and you can attach another random sharp object to it, you can extend it and then it increases its power, so it does more damage. You can add things to the end of it, so it turns into a flamethrower. There's so many different variables you can do, and from a crafting perspective, that makes more damage and makes weapons last longer in the first place as well. So that's a huge step up in terms of gameplay and storytelling on Tears of the Kingdom compared to Breath of the Wild. So if Breath of the Wild was classed as Game of the Year, then this is absolutely in for a shout at Game of the Year as well. Not for me personally.
Yeah.
For me personally, it's going to probably end up coming down to a cross between either Jedi, Hogwarts, or Diablo. I don't know how Starfield's going to do, but it's definitely so far between those three. Tears of the Kingdom I'm enjoying, but it's definitely not going to be a Game of the Year contender for me. Purely from certain gameplay perspectives and certain choices that Nintendo, like I say, mandate in terms of paying voice actors to actually do things that break immersion.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is a great game. I'm glad people are enjoying it. I already see a lot of funny things happening on
I do
Twitter
too.
with
Yeah.
people making phalluses out of different objects and making them rockets. It's
That's why it's so
it-
popular. Come on,
Exactly.
we all know it. That's why, right
Exactly.
there, Dutch. You can
But
make
it's
giant phalluses everywhere and blow
Giant
them up
phalluses.
and ride
Turn
them
them into
on
rockets.
rivers. I mean, yeah, turn them into rockets. I mean,
I saw that.
Exactly.
Dude.
It's amazing.
Insane. It's insane.
It
So
is,
this is
but it is. You know, it is. It is. They've added this weird crafting mechanic to it now. Of course, outside of the phalluses, you can build houses, you can build go karts, you can build boats.
Don't do that.
You can do anything in the game. You can add wheels to them. You can add like jetpacks to them. You've got gliders in order to you add fans and rockets to gliders, and you can kind of fly them around. And so yeah, they've added so many different mechanics to it. And of course, now you've got the sky islands that you can travel to, as well as completely underworld worlds that you can travel to. So you've got kind of 3 worlds that you can kind of traverse between, and they've all got different things that you need to kind of pay attention to or die. Essentially.
For sure.
So no, it is a huge step up, and I'm thankful that it's a game that I can enjoy because I didn't enjoy Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So this is the funny thing. You guys know, shout out to chat, everybody in chat. I see some familiar faces. You guys know, we don't shy away from talking about Nintendo on the show, right? We always talk about Nintendo, well, fairly regularly. So for me, I actually made a video. So just letting the cat out the bag. I'm gonna be dropping a video soon about Zelda. And I was back and forth about the video because I'm so torn. On one hand, I feel the way you do, Dutch. I feel like Nintendo, they have a formula. They do what they do extremely well. There's business reasons why they do what they do, but they have a formula and it works for Nintendo. But it's also extremely safe. You know what I mean? And there are some things that you can look at this game and say, you know what, there's some things that can be improved on. Hardware limitations, that's Nintendo's fault. Some of the issues are built in because Nintendo just won't make the decision to, get with the times as far as hardware. Like you said, the voice acting stuff, some of those things are more just, like you said, finance based. So it's interesting because for me personally, we talked about this pregame. I looked at all the reviews. I did expect the reviews to be as good as they were, but I just, Nintendo, like I said this before, Nintendo is kind of like Disney for a lot of people. And it's hard for people to be objective about Disney and Nintendo because they feel really close to it. You know what I mean? They love it. There's a certain kind of love that they have for this company. So I don't know about some of the reviews. I don't know how you feel about that. Just the totality. I know you said for you it's not a perfect game. There's no such thing as a perfect game, but just some of the narratives we've been hearing, lately about what a game should be, what a full $70 AAA game should provide you. What is the actual standard here, right? Like, I guess there isn't one, right? You know what I mean? Because I don't know, like where you at on that?
I completely understand as well from a reviewer perspective. What are they looking for, and what are they mandated for across the board? Are reviewers mandated at all across the board to take into certain things? Are they just saying, right, okay, well, performance and stuff like that doesn't matter if it's Nintendo because they don't mandate it themselves, so we can't knock them against that? Is it a case of, okay, well, yeah, this game's only running 720p 30? Yes, they didn't mention that it wouldn't run anything higher than that, but let's just ignore that anyway, and we'll just review it based on some of its parts. But it depends. I think there's always going to be, especially when it comes to media and media reviewers, that they sometimes let nostalgia and their love for an IP get in the way of a thorough review, as opposed to reviewing it honestly and critiquing it as if you are a completely neutral-headed critiquer. Like there was one poor review site I'd give it a 6 out of 10, and it wasn't by any way stretch any stretch of the imagination a bad review. If you actually read it, it was just a case of the guy said it's more of the same. Like it is, if you like Breath of the Wild, you like this one, but there isn't anything that it does that's too dissimilar from the first. And I understand in certain respects. I think 7 would have been maybe a bit more fair for his review, because it does do more. And again, having played both of them, it does do more in this one to get somebody who isn't that fond of Breath of the Wild to enjoy Tears of the Kingdom. So I think primarily that should have been a mark up, not a mark down, or it's more of the same. Well, it kind of is, but it isn't, because they've added a load more mechanics. Kind of expanded on the mechanics that they had in the first one, made them better, and then added multi-dimensional layers to it in order to make it even more intricate than it was in the first time round, and more like exciting and more fun.
Yeah.
So it was kind of I understand those reviews a little bit more, because it's kind of, where are we sitting on here? And people always see a 6 and think, oh, that's a bad review, but it's not. That's actually an above average review. Average is 5. So if it's above average review, you thought it was a slightly above average game.
Oh, you didn't know the scale was 5 to 10, not 1 to 10.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, they've changed how numbers work now.
Exactly. That's the one thing I never get, is when people like really boot off because a game's sitting at like 5. That's like, people are just saying, yeah, it's average, it's all right. It's not a bad game, it's not a good game. And that's exactly what my thoughts were on Redfall. Like, it's not amazing, it's not terrible, it's certainly not the worst game I've played, but it's just a bang average in the middle game. And that was what people were like so unhappy with. Oh, it's just so average. It's like, okay, but it's an average game. Like, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But then as you mentioned, then you've got 10 out of 10s, and I've never been a fan of that. Like, I've mentioned that I thought God of War Ragnarok was a 10 out of 10 for me. And the only reason I said that was because I gave God of War 2018 9.5. And I thought that the things that I loved about God of War 2018, everything was better in Ragnarok. Everything. The storytelling was better, the combat was better and more explored. The world was much better, and it's just everything about Ragnarok was better than 2018. I couldn't possibly have scored it lower, and I couldn't have scored it the same if it was better in every way.
Yeah.
So I thought, to me personally, it was a 10. But I also said there were still technical issues here and there. There's still a few things that I'd like to see them change. But from that perspective, I scored the last one 9.5. This one was better in every area that I could imagine. It was better than I thought it would be, so it's a 10 for me. So, but I'm not a critic, like an actual critical reviewer. I'm not somebody who puts a score on a site. If I was somebody that was putting a score on the site, then I would probably have went to something like, and I would have had to be like going down to semantics, but I would have had to give it like a 9.8, purely from the perspective of there are still room for improvements here. It's not a perfect game, and that's why I don't like the purely round numbered score base. This is why I tend to prefer people like ACG who don't give scores and just say it's either a buy, a wait, a rent, or ignore. Just leave it.
Yeah, for sure.
So I much prefer that, but unfortunately, game reviewers and game review sites still stick to the numerical format. So
need that traffic, Dutch. Need that traffic.
Exactly.
But awesome. So yeah, I'm super conflicted being a Zelda fan, but seeing everything and just, you know, the climate of gaming lately and how everybody's feeling about certain things. And, you know, I just don't feel like things apply across the board, but we'll get into that a little bit. But I'm gonna throw this over to you, Pong, and get your opinion. Now, Pong, obviously you're not the biggest Zelda fan. It's not something that you're gonna go stand in line for or anything like that. But
oh, Blam's got jokes tonight, everybody.
I know, right?
Blam's got jokes.
We're all kidding ourselves. He hasn't been playing. He has not been playing Diablo all night at all. He's been sitting there on Tears of the Kingdom.
Yes. I went out and got a Switch, especially for Tears of the Kingdom.
Exactly.
That's what I did.
I knew it.
Just left the Series X on, huh? And I knew it. I know, right? Like, and once again, we talk about Nintendo on this show fairly often, Pong, right? So we don't shy away from the Nintendo conversation. So I'm really curious. We talked about it a little bit in DMs, but I'm curious to see where you're at now. Obviously, the game's out, and just the energy surrounding the game. You know, where you're at with it. Even though I know you're not gonna, you know.
No. I mean, people think I'm lying when I say I'd rather play Redfall than Zelda, but I would. That's just me. I have zero interest in Zelda, but the fact is that, again, I don't take away from the game, and I certainly don't deny when a vast majority of people talk about their, you know, beloved Zelda games and how great they are. I totally understand, and I totally get it, and especially since Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom share a lot of the same qualities as my favorite games, which of course are Bethesda RPGs, right? The open world, the exploration, all of that is what Zelda has with these two games specifically. Now, other Zelda games have done it differently, obviously.
Yeah.
They've all had all sorts of different types of mechanics and everything else in their Zelda games. But these two in particular, and since we're talking about Tears of the Kingdom, that's what I pull away from it. And that's what's great to see is that people are experiencing an open world game that doesn't handhold you, that throws you into the world and says, go find your way. And that's what people talk about. Now, I chuckle a little bit and I kind of roll my eyes a little bit when people say that these are transformative games and that these,
I'm glad you said that. Now I can let it out. I can let it out now. I'm so glad you said that first phone. Thank you. I can let it out now.
I mean, that
so much about them. Oh, Zelda, this Zelda
yes.
changing the industry. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like,
it's
not changing anything. Like, what are you?
No, it's not. What it does, and Steele and I talked about this at length this morning on Living Split Screen, right? And the thing is that I understand every game has an influence from other games for the most part. 99% of games at this point. The same with movies. It's the same with any entertainment form.
It's hard to do new stuff nowadays.
Yeah, by this point, everything takes influence from something. So, and that's fine. I mean, that's great. That's a part of the whole industry. And when you do it right, it doesn't matter if you got influence or even if you took a mechanic direct from another game. If you did it better or you did it just as good and it made your game great, so be it. Hey, that's what it's all about. And with Zelda, like Steele and I were talking about this morning, the thing that I take away from Zelda is that no, while it's not transformative, sure, there are going to be developers that are influenced by this type of game because a high-profile game, whether it is an Elder Scrolls or whether it is a Zelda, when it does something so spectacular that so many people cry out in joy and it gets Game of the Year nods and all that kind of stuff, other developers do look over and say, I bet you I could do something like that. And we get other games based upon it, which is great. Because again, there are things, you never know where the next big thing is going to come from. But with Zelda, what I say is that Zelda's taken from a lot of different games, but what they do is what they do best. They weave it together in a beautiful tapestry. Now, other people can pull things. We've seen other games try to be Souls-like games. We've seen other games try to be, Elder Scrolls-like games. We've seen other games try to be Zelda games, right? Immortals Phoenix Rising was a direct, ripoff, if I can call it that. And I don't mean a slight against that because I thought it was a cool game of, Breath of the Wild. But what they do over at Nintendo is take all these different mechanics that they look in other places. They will expand upon some. They will create some own unique opportunities, and then they weave them all together. And their end game, their end product, is something amazing, and that's what captures the imagination of people. As far as the performance goes and that kind of stuff, this is the genius of Nintendo, and
they got a built-in excuse.
It truly is. This is the genius of Nintendo. They set the expectations bar so low by producing hardware that was already out of date in 2017 that there are no expectations for great performance from any of their games. There is no expectations of anything, whereas PlayStation, Xbox, get out here and promote 60 frames, promote 120 frames, promote 4K, promote, we might have 8K games out here. They promote their high end.
Or have most powerful.
Yes,
on their
or most powerful. Right. Nintendo is just happy as a lark, sitting in their own little world, selling overpriced cell phone technology to a group of fans that absolutely will buy it multiple times and just have a big smile on their face. Again, I'm saying that, and yes, I'm saying that kind of in a jokingly fashion, but that's why I say I respect the hustle of Nintendo. They do it. They've created this whole brand ever since they decided to leave the rat race of the high-end console market. And again, we can say that now because governments are now saying that. So the high-performance console market, since they decided to leave that market and do their own thing in their own way, like Dutch said, making money off of absolutely everything they produce. There is nothing that company loses money on. They've done it. They've created their perfect realm. And again, so when it comes to performance issues, I didn't expect anybody to knock it for performance issues, right? Pokemon was so bad that they had to knock it, right? There was some reviewers who knocked it. The Pokemon game did not get all 9s and 10s, right? So they had to knock something there because it was awful. But with Tears of the Kingdom, from what I've seen, and I watched the whole Digital Foundry review on it when they broke it down, after the patch, it's a pretty solid 30. Sure, there are still some times, especially when you're making things using the grab mechanic or whatever they call it, that it'll dip in kind of higher populated areas. But again, overall, this is a more stable Zelda than we've seen, right? Breath of the Wild had its issues too. So, from that aspect, I got to give them props. And then again, I don't have to like the graphics. I don't have to have an interest in Zelda, whatever else. But the physics that they use in this game, how they get them to all work on this god-awful hardware, I have no idea. Again,
you got to give them credit for that.
Yeah, they are wringing out every drop of blood out of the Switch to get this to happen, right? They are doing everything. They're masters at that hardware, and it shows and it shines through. And again,
what I would say on that front, though, Pong, what I would say on that front is when you've got a lot of overhead left over because you're not using really in-depth graphic, like it's cell shaded. You're not using loads of in-depth graphics or in-depth materials. You're not using loads of audio technology. There's lots of things shaved on. It's 720p.
Correct.
It's so dumbed down in other areas.
Yeah.
Even though it looks beautiful, they've got that, as you mentioned, they've got that refined to a point where it looks really great on a handheld device. They don't need to worry about it really up-resing to anything beyond 1080p, so don't need to worry about it too much on that front. Although one thing I will say is fix the damn lighting. It's so bright that I need to put sunglasses on when I'm playing that game. Why is it that bright?
Well, it's their version of HDR. Come on, Dutch.
It's so bright. I was streaming it yesterday, and I was like, what's going on? What?
That's funny. That's good stuff.
Jesus Christ. I've never seen anything like that. It was just blinding.
Oh, my God.
Awesome. But there isn't, that's another thing. There was literally zero settings, zero settings for brightness or anything. There was nothing to tweak anything in that game.
Because
there's no accessibility options, nothing.
It's a 10 out of 10, Dutch.
God. But that's why from a technical perspective they can kind of push the boats out on how to get things to work, because they haven't pushed the boat out in other areas. So when you look at Xbox and PlayStation, if they take keys from Zelda in terms of how to get the mechanics working on certain things and how to get the mechanics working on maybe the multi-dimensional kind of areas they've got where he's dropping from the sky into another area and then he can go underneath and there's another area. Then you add the 4K textures, you add really high fidelity texture work and stuff like that all across the entire map. You look at kind of all of the different technologies that these bigger systems are trying to use and push into it and hit 60 frames. And hit a steady note and 4K, and then you do all that at the same time, then it becomes a little bit more of a pain, and that's something Nintendo do not have to worry about. Yes, they've got super old hardware, but they've saved on so many different areas because of that they don't have to worry about it. And you have a look across the board as well at the style of their games, their own games. There's nothing that pushes the board out. I'm more impressed at the fact that the guys managed to get Witcher on there, or Hellblade, or Doom running.
You saw that tweet about they're working on Hogwarts Legacy for Switch. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's been pushed. That's been delayed again in December.
Good luck.
It'll be a flipbook game.
They're going to actually have to go to Hogwarts to get that to work. So I don't know.
They might have to. They might have to get some magic involved. But you know what? Again, that lends to exactly what I'm saying. They've set the expectation bar so low that their fans just eat this up, and there is none. There is no. Again, it is what it is because Nintendo just says, "Hey, this is what we're gonna do. Love us or don't," and they've got 120 million people that absolutely love them, right? So that's why it works.
You mentioned that, Pong. You mentioned that about Pokemon specifically. Pokemon had its issues. I loved Pokemon. I loved it. It absolutely had its issues. I loved it. The only reason I loved Pokemon was because this was the first one in a long while that actually felt like Pokemon again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Quite a
That's
few of
what
them
Steele
haven't
says.
recently, and this one has.
Yeah.
But it had severe issues, and at the same time, 22.2 million copies sold.
It was
Correct.
like how long was it? Like a
Of
week?
course.
The first week
Yeah.
or something like that?
Oh
Crazy?
God, it's just
It's
it's
insane,
so
man.
crazy. And you know what? They're gonna come out with new hardware next year, right? And they're gonna resell this game to you
Oh.
again for $70, and people are gonna eat it up yet again. But Dutch, maybe this next hardware you talked about a little bit. I gotta believe the next hardware will be able to make this 60 frames, and if that happens, then
Oh
all
yeah,
of a
it'll
sudden
be
we're gonna
using
have
Samsung S9 innards.
yeah. 9. I was waiting for like 20, but
I was
you
gonna
said
say,
9.
like, yeah.
9. No, 9.
No.
No. It was using the S3 innards last time. Come on.
Yes, that is correct. But you know what? Then there's going to be a million Nintendo fans finally coming around and saying, "How do we play games at 30 frames?" It's going to be absolutely hilarious when this happens. But again, shout out to Nintendo. Again, I'm not taking anything away.
Yeah, we're
and I'm
not.
happy. No, I'm not, and I'm happy
Yeah.
for all the fans, and I'm happy for everybody that's a Zelda fan for sure, because you guys got a game that you wanted. You all loved Breath of the Wild. Like for most Zelda fans, the majority, that is probably the GOAT. And they just did exactly what we always talk about here, Blam. If you're going to do a sequel, don't reinvent the wheel. Just take what you had that was great and beloved and just make it that much better and shore up your weaknesses. And from everything I read, review-wise, and from listening to everybody and watching people play Zelda, that's exactly what this team did. And that's why the praise is universal at this point. And hats off. I mean, again, I'm not going to sit here and say it's trash just because I don't have any interest in it. I'm not that dude. I'm going to say great for Nintendo. It's great for gaming as a whole. Yet again, as I said in my intro, when all three are hitting like this, it's vital that this industry continues to grow, and you got to have them all healthy. And when Nintendo's hitting, and we hope, and again, my belief, Starfield hits, Xbox is going to be hitting, and of course, PlayStation at the end of the year with Spider-Man 2. We all expect that to once again be another great Spider-Man game, beloved. That means all three hit this year, and that's exactly why we talked about 2023 being one of the greatest of all time. And I think it's coming true right before our eyes, and Zelda was the first out the gate. So
yeah, for sure. And I want to make sure I'm going to make sure things are clear here. I'm not hating on Zelda, right? Like I said, Zelda Ocarina of Time, my favorite Zelda game, favorite game of all time, period, bar none. So I don't want to, and I want to give Nintendo proper credit because you're right. I mean, they do continue to put out quality games. Their formula works, right? It's clearly successful, not only from a just game standpoint or critical standpoint, but also financially it works for them. You know what I mean? Dutch went over a couple quick points as to why that happens, but I just want to make sure I'm clear on that. I'm not hating on a game. I mean, I hope everybody who's playing is enjoying it. Seems like it. So, and like you said, iron sharpens iron. We need these games to come out and do extremely well because it does push the industry. Devs do look at each other. They look over the fence and say, wow, that's awesome. You saw Xbox congratulating Nintendo for the release of the game. You saw Sony come out and put out a tweet saying, great to be back in Hyrule. So, everybody's looking over the fence, and it's always to see that healthy competition. I do want to throw something out there, too, and I don't know if you know this, Dutch. I know you talked about your game of the year list earlier, right? You threw out a couple different games. Zelda wasn't one of them, but in a year in which a Bethesda game and a Zelda game specifically are both nominated for Game of the Year, Bethesda's 2-0. So I just want to throw that out there. I don't know if history is going to repeat itself. I'm not sure.
Did you look up the years, Blam, by chance?
I don't know. I didn't look up the years specifically.
And the one I know for sure. Oh, sorry, Dutch. The one I know for sure is Skyrim versus Skyward Sword, right? That was hands down. Skyrim took everything that year. I do believe, and I don't know if you know, Dutch, but I do believe the other one was 2006 with Twilight Princess, right? When Oblivion was up for Game of the Year.
Yeah.
And actually, Oblivion didn't sweep the awards. It was Oblivion and Gears of War splitting the awards that year, and Twilight Princess was always runner-up that year. That was an interesting one.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so on that front, this is why I don't doubt Starfield will be a great game. I don't believe it's going to get the 10 out of 10 universals, though, because the media will definitely be more critical of its performance and everything else that goes in between. And that's not because of what it is, but because of, again, the platforms it's on and what these platforms have touted themselves. So when these platforms tout, it's like they're capable of 60 frames or 120 frames or 4K or 8K, whatever it is. That's the remit that these reviewers are looking at as well. Okay, well, what's the performance like? Is it stable? Is it not stable? How much time has been in development for? These platforms tout power. So they take that into account. However, on a purely world building and story point, this is where Bethesda shines. Like, if every game that they've released on a story front, world building, and everything in between has always been
Tell him.
absolutely over the top. And it is back, which is why I've got no doubts that Starfield fundamentally will be a great game. But on a performance, of course, we're always going to have these. Will it be this? Will it be that? Will it have bugs? Because we know what Bethesda are like for that. But we also know that reviewers now are hypercritical when it comes to stuff like that on both PlayStation and Xbox. If it is riddled with bugs on PlayStation and Xbox, it is going to get slighted for it.
Oh yeah, 100.
However, as I say, from a purely story and world building perspective, I've got no doubts that Starfield will be a great game. It's just a case of, will the reviewers take to it as we know they should take to it, like they did with Skyrim, like they did with Oblivion, like they ended up taking with Elder Scrolls Online and the multitudes of story expansions they've had for that game as well. That's put it up there with one of the best Elder Scrolls experiences you can have now. They've done a tremendous job of pulling that around. And even if you have a look at Fallout, like, people still talk with high regards with all the Fallouts out there, and even Fallout 4, if people are still playing it to death. Fallout 76 had a resurgence, as much as that had a really terrible launch. Do I expect it to have a terrible launch? Do I expect it to be average? Absolutely not. This will be high 80s, potentially early 90s. It is absolutely up to the reviewers when it comes to Game of the Year, and the media-centric personalities that kind of vote on this system, whether or not they think Zelda takes that crown or Starfield does. And we've seen, even in previous years, the scores on Metacritic do not necessarily guarantee you winning that Game of the Year either. We've seen last year and the year before, some of the lower-end Metacritic games ended up taking crown. Not the highest rated. We bring up Forza, but Forza was one of the highest rated games last year.
True.
Forza Horizon. That didn't take that crown. Yes, it got best racer, but there was no racing games out that year. so naturally it won. It's there's absolutely no doubt in my mind Starfield will be an absolutely great game. But we can never take out the human perspective that is the reviewers. So it's going to be in for this. Absolutely, it'll be up for discussion. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Pong deserves to be excited for it. I'm excited for it. The only reason I'm not in hype mode is I'm like a lot of people, I don't get hyped until it's like a week before launch. And then I'm like, right, it's definitely here. I'm definitely looking forward to it. There's nothing going to stop it coming out now. Now I'm going to get hyped. It's the same for Hellblade. Like, that is my most anticipated game. And people would say I'm hyped for it, but it is my most anticipated game, but I'm not going to get hyped until that release date is there and it's like a week before launch, and then I'll get hyped and I'll be super pumped. But Starfield's going to be great. It is. It's definitely going to be up for discussion of Game of the Year. Absolutely.
Awesome.
I looked this up while we were doing Living Split Screen too, and I didn't bring it up because Steele and I got onto something else, as we always do. But Fallout 4 still right now has like concurrent players monthly of over 20,000 people. Like, that's like ridiculous for Fallout 4. Fallout New Vegas, which is not Bethesda, of course, it's Obsidian. That's still got almost 5,000 concurrent players right now per day. That's Halo Infinite numbers, folks. Like, that's the power of Bethesda. That's the power of those games. Like, it's just stupid how many people play those games still.
343 catching strays, but it's okay. It's all right. No, we're not gonna worry about it.
No, I just got to put it in perspective of something that just launched recently.
Context,
it's like
right?
New Vegas. Yes, it's all context. The 360 game. My God.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. But let's go ahead and throw this over to Fuzz. Get your opinion on this, man. Obviously, you not playing Zelda, right? You don't own a Switch or anything like that. But just your overall opinion. You know, people are enjoying the game. You know, not knocking people for enjoying the game because the game is awesome. You know, from what I've seen, the game looks great. You know, my wife has a Switch. You know, but where are you at on this, man?
Well, I think the biggest thing is I'm curious to see how this plays out with the next piece of hardware. Like, I know you guys have mentioned it as far as Nintendo making you rebuy it, but I hope the Nintendo fan base kind of does a little bit of a pushback, just so that way they can, get on board like a lot of the other platforms where, some of the stuff carries over, especially when it's almost the exact same code. I mean, I guess the other drawback being that some of that code leaked a week or so early, so some people are playing it on PC or even, in fact, on Steam Decks.
Steam Deck, yeah.
And there's was it D Brand, I think, is selling like a what do you call it, Tears of the Kingdom skin for your Steam Deck right now. So, but it's great that Nintendo released that. That basically their game of the year for this year. Hopefully they continue to do the same, with some of their other IPs as far as bringing some of those to the forefront. But it's cool to see everybody enjoying the game while they're playing that. But for me, Nintendo's never really been my thing. I've always been a Sega kid, and my Nintendo scope goes about as far as the original Street Fighter and F-Zero and Super Mario World and Super Mario Brothers, and that's everything else I could care less. But kudos to those that are enjoying the game now. That's great. I'll be enjoying Diablo this weekend and more than likely some other games, every weekend thereafter. But kudos to those fans.
Awesome. So, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's all about just enjoying the games. Like you said, Pong. We're in a golden age of gaming at this point in time. We got to enjoy this period of time. This is unprecedented what we're going through right now. We're talking about games like Redfall and all these other games, but we have so much to be happy about. We have so many games to be excited about, with so much more the year to go. On top of us not really knowing. Look at this. On top of this, Dutch, we don't really know much of what the big three has after June. We don't really know the outside of like Spider-Man and Starfield. We don't really know what's going on after June or so with all three companies, right? So it's a really, really, really good year. I think it's going to be a ton of surprises. I'm super, like I said, happy for Zelda that it's doing well. I don't think that's a surprise at all, just based on the fact that, Nintendo IPs traditionally sell extremely well, and Zelda is no exception, right? Zelda's no exception. So I think we're going to go ahead and throw this topic over.
Yeah, I was going to say just before you end there as well. I was laughing at the whole sales projection thing that came out from VG Charts the other day, saying, look, Nintendo's taking a dip. I was like, yeah, you're doing this weird prediction thing where just before one of the largest games they've got this generation drops, like you're saying that they're having a sales decline. Yeah, okay. Yeah, just you wait. Next quarter, you'll see this massive spike of sales again because Zelda.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely
it happens, man. It happens. Don't never write off Nintendo because they can just cook up things immediately. Like they've dropped their predictions, but I guarantee, like they had one huge spike of sales up to like 22 million copies of the Switch sold in a quarter or something like that. Then the next one dipped back down to 13.7, which was in line with every other previous quarter that they had prior to that quarter. So it's not slowing down, it's just normalized. So instead of having this huge spike where it just pinged up to 22 million, it's just normalized back to 13.7. And then it balanced out with the fact that the OLED's actually overtaken the original model now in quarterly sales. So
yeah,
now you have the Zelda OLED, you've got the regular OLED, you've got the Pokemon OLED. There's numerous amounts of OLED models out in the wild now. The light's kind of taking a dip because the OLED model's there. The original model's taking a dip because the OLED's there. So all you're going to do is see the OLED continue to increase whilst the other models continue to decrease. And it's going to balance out again at like 13 to 40 million units every quarter. So with the release of Zelda, it's going to go straight back up. There's no
Oh,
doubt about
Nintendo
it.
knows what they're doing. That you know,
Really?
like Pong said, they know exactly what they're doing. They position themselves even though it's mostly tech guys. We play on other systems, things like that. Like to us, you know what I mean. We love the hardware. We love for them to kind of get with the times. They do have a plan. Like I said, that formula works. It works. We can knock it, and we can say this or that, but it works. It works for Nintendo, and it stood the test of time.
The hustle.
Yeah.
Respect
Yeah.
the hustle. That's what it is.
Man, they cooking
You have
up
to.
over there, man,
You have to.
consistently. So you can't really say anything about that, But let's go ahead and throw this over to you, Pong. Where are you taking this week, man? I'm curious. Where are we going?
Yeah, well, in honor of Dutch being here, right? And because I really want his expertise and his deep dive on the latest comings and goings of the ABK deal. Dutch, you ready for this? No, I just had to give Dutch a hard time because Dutch is done.
Dutch was going to leave the show. This would be the first guest.
I know.
Turn his camera off and yeah. Dutch almost left. I saw it on his face. Like, dude, I'm out of here.
No, Dutch, we're not going to do that. We are going to we're going to go get kind of everybody's kind of feelings and state of the union on PlayStation Nation, because we got word this week. Jeff Grubb released his latest summer game mess that he always does of all the upcoming shows, and the smoke is building. We are going to get an actual honest to goodness PlayStation showcase supposedly by the last week of this month. Now, Grubb put in there the week of the 25th. He did clarify in a tweet after that and saying, hey, I just put the week of the 25th. It could be before then. We don't know for sure. I just don't want people mad at me if I put the 22nd or something and it doesn't show up. So he said just the week of the 25th, but a lot of people agree that it's going to be before the end of this month. It has been, folks, over 600 days since PlayStation actually had an honest to goodness showcase. Now, if this was Xbox, we'd all know the exact number of days because everybody'd be talking about it at this point. But because it's PlayStation, nobody said boo, okay? And that's where we're at. But it has been over 600 days. It was September of 2021 when they last had an official showcase. And again, that's different from their state of plays for anybody out there going, yeah, but they had all these state of play. Yeah, those don't count. We're talking about an honest to goodness showcase. So since this is coming up, I kind of wanted to get everybody's thoughts because we are coming into E3 season. I think this is fantastic. If this happens, we should probably get an announcement next week, I would think. But I think it's great that they are going first, I miss the days, we've talked about this, of the old E3s when you had the big three there and you would have them back to back or the next day. And it was this kind of back and forth. I'm going to show you up. We got to see your show yesterday. We saw what happened when Xbox made their mistakes with the Xbox One, and Sony, took a little extra time and redid their entire announcement for the PlayStation 4. Yeah, exactly. Removed a bunch of slides, and all that kind of stuff. So I love this. I love this competition. And if Sony's actually going to do this, again, we, like you just got done saying, Blam, we don't know anything because everybody, especially Xbox and PlayStation, ever since the ABK announcement for sure, has been awfully quiet and really hiding from the public eye. Now, Xbox still did their showcase last year. They did the whole dumb 12-month thing. We saw how that turned out, but PlayStation hasn't shown anything. And we know they got things cooking. This year is extremely light. This year, you probably should get a little criticism for their first party output if all they've got is Spider-Man 2. But of course, nobody wants to talk about that.
Final Fantasy as well.
Yeah, but that doesn't count. That's third party. That don't count. We're changing the rules again. Okay,
I get you.
But anyways, Dutch, I'm going to go to you first, sir. So let's assume that the showcase is going to happen. Again, we don't know anything. Take it with a grain of salt. It is what it is. But assuming they have a full-blown showcase, a couple things for you, Dutch, here. Do you think Sony is going to play conservative, or do you think they're going to do hopes and dreams like they did in, I believe it was 2016, right? When they did hopes and dreams, when they sold everybody on the future of what PlayStation 4 was. Is it time for that? They seemingly, again, with Spider-Man 2 being the only thing coming out this year, we know about factions. We know that Wolverine's being made. We don't know a whole lot. Is it time for them to do that again for the PlayStation 5 and sell those hopes and dreams and show the fan base why they invested into PlayStation 5? Or do you think they hold back still? And do you think that they just show us, some updates, maybe give us some Spider-Man 2, short-term stuff? And then second of all, what would you like to see if you were running the PlayStation Showcase? Is there anything that you would like for sure to be there, assuming again that it's at the end of this month? What do you think, Dutch?
Yeah, well, the media outlets are making this out to be the next Marvel Universe update. They keep touting it as the next phase of PlayStation. I think that's only because this is how often Marvel usually talk about the phases of their setups as well. It's just like once a generation you get to see what they're working on, and what's next for the next 5 years in Marvel.
Mhm.
So it shouldn't be that often. Like we shouldn't be trying to damage control, which they are. They're damage controlling the fact that they haven't bothered to do a showcase in 2 years.
Right.
And now they're calling it a phase. It's like, let's just cut the crap. It's not a phase. They're just being lazy and they haven't done a showcase in 2 years. There's no phase. They need to show what they're working on. They still have consoles to sell. The one thing I will say though on that front is that they are now done with cross-platform stuff. Absolutely done with it. They've seen what they've done with the intent is there because of the Horizon Forbidden West expansion, which is PS5 only.
Yep.
Cutting out all of the PS4 players from that expansion, the ones that bought Horizon on that platform. So that's given them a reason to upgrade and a reason, if they loved Horizon, to get a PlayStation 5 to get the expansion. So they're already pushing their players to get the PlayStation 5 now, which is why we've seen these sharp peaks of people buying them, like 500% increase across Europe and North America in console sales. And that's because they are arching towards the current gen consoles and trying to wean people off that console quick. This is where the next showcase from PlayStation is absolutely going to be current gen only. No more cross-platform stuff. Yes, there's going to be third-party stuff that's cross-platform, but that's not their issue. That's obviously not their problem at all.
Right.
From a first-party perspective, it is definitely it has to hit it out the park. It has to. I don't think they can be conservative now. I don't think they've got the room to be conservative now. Only showing Spider-Man's not enough. It is absolutely not enough. Because as great as Spider-Man is, and Jim Ryan said it himself, selling 10 or 20 million units is great, but like we've got 120, 140 million consoles. 20 million doesn't scratch the surface in the grand scheme. Like, it's not good enough. Which is why when we say from an Xbox perspective, if Xbox is selling 20, 30 million units, that's half of their platform. It is a monster sales number for Xbox, and it sounds stupid, but it is. Not all Xbox games hit PC day one. Not all Xbox games on PC hit Xbox consoles on day one. Some of them do, some of them don't. Yes, they're going for player engagement numbers now, but that's because a lot of their games have online infrastructures, and that's what really matters to them, recurring players. When you're only selling single-player games like PlayStation do and haven't got an online community in that front, looking at player engagement for single-player only games makes no sense.
Right.
Going forward, it's going to be an entirely different story because they're working on games as a service games, they're working on multiplayer games.
Yep.
So they will start to see PlayStation touting monthly residual or how many players they've managed to get or how many players in player engagement numbers they've got across these games. But you'll see sales numbers strictly for single player only games as well. But no, they need to hit it out the park. Absolutely, Pong. They cannot go conservative. They need to show what they're working on, both near midterm and a sprinkling of the future as well. We don't know what any of the studios outside of Insomniac and part of Naughty Dog are working on. We know they're doing Infractions. We know Venom, and we know not Venom, Wolverine,
Yes.
and we know
Venom is in Spider-Man, though. You weren't wrong.
That's it. Yeah, he is. Yeah. We know Spider-Man, Wolverine, and Fractions, and that's it. Outside of that, we know Death Stranding 2, which will be on PC and PlayStation. And I wouldn't go. In fact, no, I'm sure that's a Sony IP as well now, isn't it? Death Stranding.
Yes, it is.
Pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Although we will see that on, no doubt we'll see that on PC Game Pass at some point in the future as well, because it is still on PC Game Pass. The first one. So outside of those where they've got marketing deals with third parties, from a first party perspective, we only know of 3 games. So we know on Xbox's side there are 40 plus projects, and we know at least 26 of them that have been announced. So this is where I say I'm more excited for PlayStation Showcase than I am for Xbox's, because on Xbox's side we're going to get a sprinkling of a couple of surprises, which I'm excited for. But overall, we kind of know what we're going to see. So out of all of the games that we're going, we're saying, right, okay, well, we're probably not going to see Indie. That's still probably a little bit longer in the oven. We're probably going to see Avowed. We're probably going to see Fable. We're probably going to see Hellblade. We're going to see XYZ. We're not going to see this, and this. These are still a little bit far out. This one had a bit of a hiccup. We probably won't see this, but it could be a surprise drop, and we'll see that game. But we know what the projects are. We know the titles of the games. They've been announced before. So on Xbox's front, it's more of an anticipation of seeing gameplay. Okay, great. I know what these games are. I want to see what they are, like in terms of the gameplay perspective. On PlayStation's front, we know nothing. Zero, nada. We do not know anything. So I'm more excited to see what projects they've got in the works. I would love to see what Corey's next game is that has no relation to God of War.
Yeah.
I want to see
that
that. Is
sci-fi game.
Yeah. That is my most like anticipated like what ifs from the showcase. Do we see Corey's next game? Is it too early yet? That would be awesome to see that one get announced. Do we see what Sony Ben's working on? Because they're working on a new game as well. Because of course we know they weren't allowed to do the
Days Gone.
Days Gone 2. Do we see what Insomniac, poor guys, literally carrying PlayStation?
People don't want to talk about that, Dutch, but they've been carrying them. What I said, they've been carrying since they got there, but they've been the workhorse since they signed that paper. Like
that cow's getting a little thin.
Oh yeah,
I tell you.
Yeah, yeah, and they've literally, and even still, this entire year is held around Spider-Man, because that's all they've got, and they've even said that in financials. Right. Spider-Man's the only AAA game we're releasing from a first-party perspective this year. Don't expect any other games. That's the only one that's dropping. So we know that from this showcase that we're seeing that there's going to be no more first-party games this year to release this year outside of Spider-Man. So whatever we get shown is going to be next year and the year after. Okay, that's fine. That's no problem. But like whatever it is, it needs to have a solid release window. It can't be none of this God of War. It can't be none of this beginning of the generation stuff where they said it was going to release in order to get inflated sales numbers at launch and then push it back just before it released and say, it's delayed.
Right.
Trickery to get the sales numbers up at launch. But again, Sony be doing Sony. No, they need to hit it out the park, absolutely. But for me, the most anticipated Pong is absolutely Corey's game. I want to see what that is. I like what Corey does with his studios, the storytelling he comes up with, and I like the fact that he's allowed to go after something that he wants to create this time around and not just take on the mantle.
He's more than earned that, though. He's more than earned that. Yeah,
exactly. So I'm hyped that Sony's allowed that. It sounds strange to say that, but Sony are very set in their ways, and if they don't want something to happen, it doesn't happen.
Right.
We've seen that with Days Gone 2. Like that studio really wanted to make that happen. They had a plan. They put it in front of them and they just went, nope, didn't hit the critical reception, so it's not happening, and that's it. Yeah. Like sales was fine. Sales was like 8.1 million, 8.2 million for a brand new IP. That's brilliant. That's an absolutely amazing sales figure. But Sony didn't like it.
Nope.
So it didn't happen. so I am really happy that Corey's getting his chance. He can create a brand new IP. I want to see the old Sony back. Whatever they do now, I want to see the old Sony back with loads of fresh new ideas, loads of brand new IPs. Let's see what you're working on. Let's blow us away. We need them to, from an Xbox perspective as well, being an Xbox centric guy. We need Sony to absolutely nail it because it pushes Xbox to be better.
More pressure.
That's what it has to be. And in Xbox, when they do their showcase, it has to be exactly the same thing. Whatever they show needs to absolutely nail it. They need to be on track with the dates. They need to be right. Okay, this is when this is coming out. This is when this is coming out. This is what you're gonna expect here. This is gameplay on Series X, or even if they show gameplay on PC, just put this is gameplay on PC.
Oh yes,
Whatever it is, detail it, be precise, and blow it out the water. But PlayStation cannot be conservative. They need to go for it.
Awesome thoughts. Thank you so much, Dutch. I knew you were going to bring it, brother. I appreciate it, and I do agree. Out of everything that's potentially there, I got to say Corey's game does interest me the most. Going completely, different from what he's done with Kratos, unless of course it's like Kratos the Space King, and we get God of War in space. Maybe that's what it'll be this time around. Sad Dad in space. No, just to see. I love when teams do something completely different, and if they pull off a sci-fi adventure, my God, that's super cool. And so I am excited for Corey's as well. But great thoughts, Dutch. I agree wholeheartedly with you. Fuzzy, let's get it over to you, brother. Let's get it over to you. PlayStation, we know, they've got 10, 12 games as a service games hanging around out there. We got Jade Raymond's studio, Haven, got something in the works. Dutch brought up a lot of the other ones that potentially could be there. But for you, first of all, again, same questions. Do they go conservative or do they go big? Is this hopes and dreams again? And then, of course, for you specifically, what is the one game that you would like to see show up there? If you had your way, what game would you like to see show up?
I think they go conservative. I mean, I'll be honest.
Nice.
I still have my doubts on the end of May for their showcase. Like
Okay.
I foresee it more so like August, September.
Okay.
But I hope I'm wrong. I think they go conservative because I don't think there's enough stuff far enough along to really give a viewing. Like I put a little quick list together, like Spider-Man 2, obviously, because that's coming out. Ghost of Tsushima 2 is more than likely one of those that they'll show, because I think much like with God of War and with Spider-Man, it will be a faster turnaround just because you can expand on that same world. Outside of that, Factions should definitely be one of those, because that one
Lord
is
have mercy, Jesus.
It's behind schedule as far as I understand at this point. But I think that one will surprise many. I think, there's a lot of talk about, they show concept art. Who gets hype over concept art? And, there's a lot of discussions to be had about how that game is going to be offered, whether it's going to be a full 70, like I think it will be, or is it going to be something that's included in their subscription service? We'll see. But that definitely needs to be in their show. And even with it being somewhat conservative, I think that one has to be there. Another one that I expect to be there, which would be a third party, is going to be Pragmata. Like, they got the marketing rights on that game with Capcom.
Ooh, I like
and
that.
we haven't seen boo
anything
about that since the introduction of the PS5. It's like, radio silence, both on Capcom side and PlayStation side on that one. One that I hope, this isn't the main thing I would love to see if it was up to me, but this is on my top 3 list. Gran Turismo 7 on PC. Like, if they're going to do the whole slate thing, make that the next one that goes on there. I'm hearing rumors it's supposed to be Sackboy or something along those lines, but put Gran Turismo 7 on there and make it so it's cross save. So if you already have a save on your PS5, it would carry over. Although I have my doubts that they'll do that, because they're going to want you to buy it again and grind again and, possibly get some microtransaction money out of you. But nonetheless, I want to see that come to PC, because, ray tracing on track, I think PC would be able to handle it. Another one that's definitely going to be there, and we kind of saw a leak of it, was the Horizon Forbidden West, games as a service thing that looked like Fortnite kind of deal. I think that makes an appearance. That's probably their next big games as a service that makes an appearance.
I like it.
One that was a rumor a while ago and it would go perfect with the timing of the TV show or the TV series would be Twisted Metal. That's another one on my top 3 list as far as ones that I would love to see if it was up to me. I just have this gut feeling that's going to make an appearance. And if it's not Twisted Metal, the long, quiet, rumored Marvel multiplayer game that I think they have the marketing rights to, or they got the licensing 2? To. Like, I don't know if it's just going to be centered around Spider-Man. I think it's going to be kind of like Avengers, but Spider-Man Avengers kind of thing. It's not going to make the mistakes that Square did with Crystal on having that as a game as a service in the manner that they did it. I think it'll be more of a traditional where the cosmetics are going to be the monetization part, and the rest will be more like the Spider-Man as far as progression and things like that. Another one that there's 2 from Bungie. There's Marathon and then there's Matter.
Yep.
I don't think Matter is far enough along just yet. It probably needs to be, but Marathon was another one that's kind of rumored that they are going to be revisiting as far as that IP that they had back when they were making games for Apple. So I think that one makes an appearance because I think that's going to be a quicker PvP, VE kind of Destiny reskin in a way with some extraction style functionality to it, kind of like a Escape from Tarkov, but maybe a little bit more sci-fi, but not like as futuristic as Destiny kind of thing. Metal Gear, we've already heard the rumors of it. I kind of thought Blue Point were the ones working on it, but we'll see if Blue Point actually has its own IP that they've been working on. But since they got the Metal Gear license, or the rumor has it that they have the Metal Gear license, the reboot of was it Metal Gear 3 should probably be there as well. Mm-hmm. We've already seen the Silent Hill stuff, so I don't know if that makes an appearance.
Yeah.
Death Stranding, much like Dutch was saying earlier, Death Stranding 2 will probably make an appearance, but I think this time Sony gets petty and does the publishing for PC, so 505 is not involved. I think we won't see Death Stranding 2 in Game Pass PC. I could be wrong, but Sony's that type of company.
Depends on how much they value that Kojima relationship, because Kojima will not tolerate anything. He'll just pull the plug.
It's true, but I just have a feeling that they're going to make it very appealing for Kojima to have it not appear on Game Pass PC. Sony being Sony, I think they're going to convince them in some, financial backing kind of manner.
They would have to make it really big though, because obviously, like, he's got that game on Steam as well, so it have to be.
Well, I think they'll probably allow it to be on Steam and on Epic, but they'll find a way to avoid, the Microsoft Store. I don't know. I like I said, I hope I'm wrong, but Sony, they're that type of company that just likes to play keep away with Xbox. And then for some oddball games, and once again, this is the conservative side of things, I expect an Astrobot type of game for PSVR 2. I'm kind of surprised they didn't do like an Astrobot meets Fall Guys kind of spin-off type of thing and make that for the PSVR. I would have assumed that they would have had an Astrobot game ready for PSVR 2, but instead they had the Call of the Mountain deal from Horizon. But Astrobot, considering how well it pushed the functionality of the DualSense, they got to do something with the PSVR to kind of, help that as well to some extent. Not an oddball, but like a little known game that's going to be on Steam and on Oculus that I expect to come to PSVR as well would be Geronimo. It's kind of a first person shooter / sniper, Zero Dark 30 kind of game. So expect that. And then I expect hardware. I know there was rumors before of like a PS5 Lite, like a portable, and then a possible PS5 Pro. I don't think either one make a showing. I think the Slim is the one that makes the showing, because then that will tie in with clearing the inventory of what they have out in the market now, and then trying to push those that may have bought the original, in the first couple of years to pick up a Slim. Right. So I think they advertise the Slim, the one without the disc or whatever, or the modular disc thing. If they were to go a little bit more in depth, then I think we would see a lot more of the games from like from Haven Studios. I know that there was another third party game that there was a clip floating around that was like it wasn't like Anthem, but it had like Anthem like looks to it, but like with lesser graphics type of deal that they had a third party working on. I think at that point, if they go less conservative, like an all hopes and dreams kind of thing, then we see Barlog's sci-fi game. And then don't forget, we also are going to probably wind up getting a Horizon Zero Dawn remake. So that's got to fit in somewhere as well. I'm trying to think if there was any other like big special things that PlayStation should be holding on to, but the only other thing I would love to see them do, but I know that they don't have the means to do it because they don't have a studio good at arcade racers per se, would be to take something like the way we have Forza Horizon, take the assets from Gran Turismo and put those in an arcade racer, have it where it's an open world in Japan. I think if they can beat Horizon, like if something like this was working in the background and they were able to launch it before, let's say Forza Horizon 6, and it's in Japan and it has the drifting, it has the street racing and the midnight club type racing stuff, I think that would be the pinnacle at that point as far as having a arcade racer in that region with the visuals of Gran Turismo, but a little bit more welcoming, kind of like Drive Club, but they already closed Evolution years ago. So,
I think they would have to severely increase and this is no knock on GT because GT is a great racing or simulator game, but in terms of its graphical output, they would have to severely increase it to stand a chance against Forza Horizon. Forza Horizon's fidelity and its level of detail in its world is far outdoes that of GT. But that's not to say that they can't make one. And they could easily just call it GT World, for instance, and then just go on that perspective. But I think they've got the cars down, but GT's never been renowned for world detail, and that's one thing that they would have to really invest in.
Yeah, good point.
I think it's doable for them. One, if with the region, it'll be a lot easier. If you look at their escape backgrounds and like the replays that play while you have it in idle, they use like the escapes area where the scenery is like the umph level degree as far as detail. They just need to have it where it's just focused on the particular city. So if they can do what they have in escapes where you can see the cars drive around. Now you can't do it yourself, but for replay purposes, it's kind of like an in-engine type of thing. They should have the ability, if they keep it just on PS5, like no more of this cross-gen stuff. If they have it just on the PS5, I think they'll have something that can rival it. Now, when you zoom in, it'll be a little bit flatter. It won't have like the three-dimensional wherewithal as far as like, the cobblestones and things like that on the road. But their escapes backgrounds, since it's like an in-engine snapshot of a small region, if they can lace that together or stitch that together, just do it on PS5, I think they would have something that can rival it. Maybe not the greatest level of detail for the world, but something that for all intents and purposes, flying down the street at 100 miles an hour, I think it would be passable. And then they'll have it where if you want to put it in photo mode, then they'll have it where it's more of like the scapes, where it's like, all right, it's a still. Photos will look great. Motion photos or in-race photos may not look as great, but they'll be like the same as what Gran Turismo has now, which isn't bad. It's just not to the same, like you said, it's not to the same level as Horizon 5 is now, or what Motorsport will be. But I think they'll definitely, if they could find a studio that is good at doing arcade racers or being able to put all of that together using some of the GT assets, I think they could have something that would at least from a PlayStation standpoint keep their fan base happy. But I don't know. It just feels weird that there's these rumors for the showcase, considering it's the same week to almost the same date mentioned.
Fuzzy, I still don't believe it's going to be the 25th. I really don't. I really don't.
I don't even think it's going to be May. Like it doesn't make sense for PlayStation. Like if you're worried about stomping out your competition's, highlight point, you do it either the same day like you've been doing it in the past when you used to do E3. You do it June 11th, a couple of hours after, the Xbox One, and then the news story for Xbox will be 2 hours, and then everybody will be, wooing over the PlayStation one. So that to me makes more sense for PlayStation if they're going to do one this close to now. Do it June 11th, 2 hours after the Xbox One. But otherwise, I don't foresee anything until September or October or August or September, because that would be more in tune with like a state of play for Spider-Man. If Spider-Man winds up landing in September, like I guess the original rumor, where it's like within a couple of days of Starfield. But we'll see. I hope I'm wrong. Hope we see something later this month. It's been 2 years. I don't know. I've kind of given up on PlayStation being its normal self until either the ABK deal is completely killed or they have all of their games as a service ready to launch on their subscription service. So we'll see.
I got a chuckle here, Chad. I don't know if you picked up on this. Fuzzy started out first by saying that it was going to be conservative. So that was the conservative side of PlayStation. And second of all, I don't know if you guys caught it, but he said he just jotted down a few things. This man laid out the entire PlayStation showcase in detail, even going so far as to name some game called Geronimo, which I don't remember ever seeing.
Me either. I've never heard of it.
He pulling rabbits out of his hat, and he's throwing down. And this was conservative, folks. Man, Fuzzy, great breakdown, sir. I appreciate that for sure. Was not expecting all that, and that's why I go to you, sir. That's amazing. So again, awesome. Thanks, Fuzz. I do appreciate it. So, Blam, you've heard the entire showcase. So at this point, I don't know what more you can add, sir. But you got to try your best here. So again, do they go conservative or do they go big? And on top of everything Fuzzy just said, right? What is the one thing that you would want to see there from the show? Or if you had if you were Jim Ryan and you were laying out the showcase, what would you show? So go ahead, sir.
All right, so first, right off the rip, I'm not 100% sold on the late May. I think it was. I know he said the week of the 25th, not the 25th specifically, because he didn't want to get killed. So,
right.
But yeah, I'm not 100% sold on that date because partly because it doesn't make sense for Sony. What's the point of going now? It'd be so far off the course of what they traditionally do. The last show they had, like you said, what was 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago, what's the last?
Since you guys all started talking about this, let me throw this in here just real quick. The reason why it makes sense is because they're going to have a state of play with a full blowout of Spider-Man 2 sometime in the fall. All right, so or late summer leading into fall. If Spider-Man's truly going to release, sometime in September, then they'll have that state of play where they blow everything up. So you don't, to have the showcase now makes sense in my perspective, if they're going to have that state of play there. So that's the only thing I would throw in there.
Okay. Well, I'm still not 100% sold on a date. It's so left field for Sony. Although they haven't been acting Sony like recently. I say the last couple of years they've been doing some things differently.
600 days plus.
Yeah, they've been doing some things differently. Now, as far as what I think they will show at the show, what will I like to see at the show? There's
Or
some things.
first conservative, or do they go big? Hopes and dreams. Which one, sir?
Oh my goodness, they're in such a weird position because they don't have really much going on this year. There's not a whole lot. Like you said, Spider-Man 2 is about it. You got your Final Fantasy, but from first party, it's slim pickings from Sony this year. So it puts them in a precarious position. Now, from a brand standpoint, they probably don't need to do much. People are okay with Spider-Man. Their fans are probably just going to be okay with Spider-Man. But you got to understand, we've talked about this, Pong. We've talked many times. Xbox is not sitting idle anymore. They're not going to sit idle. Even I know this ABK stuff is kind of, it's an anchor they've been dragging around. I don't think they're going to sit idle. So Sony needs to do something. I think they go the hopes and dreams route a little bit more. And I think they lean heavy into the games as a service stuff. Because for Sony's strengths, that's one thing they do not do well. And that's one thing, if they're going to compete in this new climate of gaming where cloud and mobile and, you got the reoccurring numbers. I know Dutch talked about, engagement now being this new metric. Sony's trying to get to that space. Game Pass has come along and changed the dynamic of the industry. So they're trying to get to that space. So I think they lean heavy into the games as a service games. We already know I believe they said 10 to 15 in the next, I believe 3 to 4 years. Somebody, looked that up for me, but I believe they're working on a ton of games as a service stuff. They've hired a ton of studios, but bought a ton of studios. Haven, specifically a few other ones that we know are working on games as a service like games. So I think they lean into that as well. I don't know, man. It's a strange year for Sony. Let me see. I do think they go a little further out too. They show some things that we don't really know about in the future as well too. It's just tough, man. Like I didn't really get a chance to, man. It's really, really tough. Games as a service, first party. Yeah, I think that's where I'm at for the most part.
Do you think they lean into VR?
No.
No?
I think they've already, I mean, I don't think they're gonna let it, kind of go by the wayside. Although I don't really see much movement in that area either.
Right.
We got to consider too. There's this rumor about the new hardware. Do we see that at the show? I don't know if they're going to do the PS4 Pro. I know Fuzz mentioned the Slim. Which one are we going to actually see? Because that does change the dynamic. As far as where they're going to do in the future. So there's that too. We got to look at that too. That's really important. I don't have a list of all the games Fuzz had. I would love to you. I know, right? I would love to see factions show up at some point in time because listen, I mean, we talked about, Halo's development. Factions has been in development for a long time, bro. Like we've been talking about factions for what, like 3 years now, something like that at least. So I'd love to see them do something there. I do agree with you, Fuzz, about Ghost of Tsushima 2. I do think that is a reasonable expectation. That game did phenomenal. It was an amazing game, one of the best games. Some people say the best game that, I don't say best game Sony ever came out with, but some people prefer that game over the likes of even God of War, The Last of Us. That was that good. So I do think they go that route as well too. That's going to be really interesting. I mean, they do have to, the show has to be good. It has to be solid, obviously, because you got Xbox coming in June. So I mean, I don't think they got a whole lot to show. I do think they do more hopes and dreams. But
is there one game that you'd like to see there, Blem? If you're running the ship, what game would you bring that? Even if it's something you don't know is a reality.
Well, I'm leaning into the Metal Gear Solid stuff too. Yep. I'd like to see them do that. Obviously, there's been rumors floating around about maybe one not, Kojima's not involved at all. Right. Konami just said, here you go, Sony, go ahead and take the IP. I do believe in that as well too. I think that'll be huge. I know Fuzz mentioned Twisted Metal because of the show coming out fairly soon this year. Twisted Metal will be really interesting. It's a fun game. I don't know how many people are going to be interested in it because it's a lot of the people playing games now never even heard of Twisted Metal. A lot of these younger gamers didn't get a chance to play the original Twisted Metal. So maybe it's interesting enough to bring a fresh new crowd in. Depending on how the game goes, but that would be cool. I'd like to see something like that. It's a weird year for them though, and I just don't believe that date makes any sense. I do think that they're probably going to do something after the Xbox showcase. I would prefer them to do something after the Xbox showcase, but that's pretty par for the course for Sony. But I don't really have much else.
Okay, no, that's fine, PTK. I mean, again, it's kind of like we haven't seen anything. 600+ days.
Yeah, it's tough to say.
For me, I like the date, as I explained before. I do like the date if they make it happen. I think it does fit in. They're riding a high right now as far as their console sales go. You push that envelope, especially if you're going to introduce new hardware. So if you're going to introduce new hardware, and that's coming before the end of the year, supposedly, again, the PS5 Slim with the disk
Detachable.
drive sold, the
Yeah.
detachable disk drive sold separately, then this is the perfect time to start getting people ready for that. And then you sell it hopes and dreams. So for me, they go big. And maybe this is just my hope again to the old days. But like you all have said, and Blam, you just said it now, with Xbox showing up, and despite the fact that they've had their stumbles, despite the fact that the console sales hasn't been in their favor because for whatever reason can't seem to get enough series consoles out there into the wild, especially Series X's, then despite all of that, Sony knows damn well what Xbox has got in the pipeline. And they know damn well how much content is coming. And you got Phil coming out here cranky, upset, and in an interview says finally he sees the roadmap. Finally he sees one AAA game, first party, every quarter. Sony's got to respond to that. Sony's got to, not that they would be hurt by it per se, because again, they're doing just fine. They're breaking records in console sales, but you got Sony Corp coming out and saying, hey, our players aren't buying games anymore. We have an issue. They're not buying any games. So you've got to push the narrative. And I think so they go big. They go big. This is hopes and dreams. And I think they bring out all the big guns. I think they tease as much as they possibly can. Even some games that maybe might not be ready, they still tease it. And I think that that's what they're going to do here. And I think that on top of everything Fuzzy said, which he was absolutely correct, listing off everything he said, I think the Konami games show up for sure. Those are a big one. I think Spider-Man 2 definitely makes a big presence, getting ready, as I just said, for what I believe will be a state of play later where they blow it out, kind of like the Starfield Direct. But I think that they do show it up here and finally give everybody a real good look at it to kind of give people an expectation of what to get ready for come fall. And then I think that outside of that, Corey's new game, I think it's time. It's probably been in production now for a couple years. They can definitely show something, at least give a title and a glimpse of what it's going to look like. That's what Sony did back in 2016. They can do it here again with Corey's game. I think they might even tease Naughty Dog's rumored second game, not The Last of Us, not Factions, but supposedly Naughty Dog, there's been some smoke, is out there working on an open world RPG and fantasy. And that's their response to Elder Scrolls, right? That's their response. They got their best team, what many people consider to be their best team, on a totally different genre than what they're used to doing. But at the end of the day, talent sometimes comes through. So I'd love to see that. And I think they tease that because that would be like, oh my God, holy cow, Sony's back. Then I think if any of the other smoke out there has been real about Resistance, Fall of Man, or SOCOM coming back, I think you show it here. If they tease SOCOM or Resistance, again, going back to, okay, Sony's first party is now getting back to diversity. We are now seeing a return of the PS2, PS3 kind of Sony. They're not resting on the one game to rule them all, as Phil said. They are going back to their roots. They're opening up the closets where they've locked away all this IP. It's been collecting dust. People have been crying for it. And I think it would be a huge moment, even, again, if we know nothing about the game, even if we don't know how it's going to turn out, just flashing that title screen from one of those two games on the screen will get people extremely hyped on the Sony fan base side. And I think you just roll from there with everything that Fuzzy just got done saying and how he laid it all out. It was done very well. And I think that you show up with some indies, you reinsert yourself as an indie console. You've just had a month and a half of cancellation news with your third parties. So you promote your third parties that are still going good, right? Again, nobody's talking about it, but Sony's canceled, probably like 3 projects right now. 4 if you count Dreams, which was a project of theirs. And they've caused some massive layoffs at some of these third-party studios. So you lean into these third-party studios that you still have deals working with, and then some of your new studios, right? Haven, Jade Raymond's team, they've been working on that game for a while now. It's time to show it, kind of give people an idea what that's going to be. So, yeah, I definitely think this is a hopes and dreams showcase. I think they go big. I think they go all out. I think this is 2016 all over again, getting the Sony fan base ready for the next 5 years. getting people ready to start investing in new hardware. I don't think they're going to show the Pro. If the Pro is a reality, we'll see that sometime maybe next year. But right now they're going to focus on the Slim. But I think the Slim coming out and you package that with custom Spider-Man 2 plates or whatever they do for the Slim, however they redesign it, you come out with a Spider-Man 2 version of that, you're going to sell a lot, okay? It's going to be ridiculous for people. So that's what I would do. That's my hopes and dreams. Again, if it was me, my one game that I want to see come would a Fuzzy kind of touched on a little bit. Twisted Metal, I'd love to see come back and got the right team to do it. But SOCOM would be huge for me. I'd love to see them jump back in with SOCOM and really put their effort into it. Not like half-heartedly try, we're bringing back SOCOM. It's going to be no. You can look across the landscape. Yes, 2023 is full of competitors. This is not the same as it was when SOCOM was popular back in the day. But you can learn from everybody else. You've got Bungie now on your side. You've got some of the best shooting mechanics out there in the Bungie team. You can turn that into a third-person SOCOM game, learn from everybody else, and really go full bore and bring back SOCOM. That would be gigantic for them. So that's what I want.
Awesome question. Awesome breakdown, man. Thank you for bringing that topic up. It's interesting to see, though, man. Really interesting to see, man. When I first saw that rumor come out, essentially, threw me off a little bit, but it's cool to have that breakdown and get everybody's opinion on it. But we're gonna throw this over to Fuzz, man. And before we do that, let me give a couple quick shout outs, man. A couple quick super chats too. I missed a few. So we got $2 super chat from Splendiferous. He said, "Great to see you all here. Tonight, brothers, did Pong rest?" I don't know. Maybe I think you might be talking about Diablo, Pong. I'm not sure if you rested.
Yes, I did go to bed last night. That's why I only got to level 19 and a half last night. I even stopped before I maxed last night.
Save yourself a little wiggle room, that other half a level. And then another $5 super. Thanks, Dutch. I appreciate you, bro. So shout out to the awesome chat. Hit that like. So Dutchy with the €5. Sorry, dollar, pounds, euros. And then we got a $2 super chat from Drawn TJ. He said, "Hi guys, what's up, Drawn TJ? I appreciate you and the support. Thank you so much for the $2 super chat." But we're gonna throw this over to Mr. Fuzzy Belvedere, man. So where we going this week, Fuzz?
Let's talk about Starfield. Recently we got some news that it has a mature rating. And I guess a lot of people were kind of wondering if it was going to go down the same path, kind of like with Mass Effect, with certain scenes and things like that. But it appears that we've gotten more details from the ESRB. I think originally it was through like the Australian ratings board, and now the ESRB has some further details as far as what's involved in that rating. So I'll just give a quick rundown. This is an open world role-playing game in which players assume the role of a miner tasked with finding artifacts across the galaxy. From first and third person perspectives, players interact with various characters, complete quests, and search for supplies while battling enemies, humans, robots, alien creatures. Players use futuristic guns, lasers, axes, and explosives to kill enemies. Combat is fast-paced with frequent gunfire, cries of pain, and explosions. Attacks on some enemies can result in blood spatter effects. Several environmental depict bloodstains on the ground around corpses. The game contains some suggestive material in the dialogue and after sharing a bed with characters. Now, I'm not going to read some of the things they had there, but apparently STDs will possibly be a thing, or having jetpacks strapped to your back. So yeah, zero G stuff. But let's see. All right, and then there's the fictional drug Aurora, which is prominent in the game, which with a section involving players' characters working in an illicit drug lab. Players can also obtain Aurora by stealing or buying it from vendors. Consuming Aurora will result in disorienting effects on the screen. And words like fuck and bullshit appear in the game as well. So that was just their brief rundown of what to expect from the game. Now, I'll start with you, Dutch, as far as with knowing the rating now, and that out of the 2 hours, it's going to, well, out of the 2 hour showcase, we're guesstimating somewhere around an hour and a half for the main Xbox showcase, and then at least a half hour for the director, the Starfield Direct,
Direct. Yeah.
being about a half hour. What are some of the things that you would like to see them show? Now, I don't know if you want to go to the extremes as far as all of the things mentioned under that mature rating, but what are some key things that you're hoping to see in that director, the Starfield Direct, as far as for the that showcase?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say really, because we've seen a lot of Starfield at this point now. And it'll be a fine balance of Todd and the team to show more and not spoil the game. So I think they will show, maybe show a mission off, or even like kind of a mission cut into segments, so it kind of shortens down the time span that you see that mission. So maybe what would be a half an hour kind of side quest kind of put into kind of a space of like 5-10 minutes or something like that, so you kind of get an understanding of what some of the mission and storytelling is going to be like in the game. I don't foresee them kind of going down showing you what the main story is going to be, but I think they'll talk about it a little bit more in the showcase. But I think in terms of the footage we'll see, it'll be a good mixture of kind of the combat, but maybe kind of like I say, kind of a more of a deeper dive into an actual full gameplay segment of a side quest or something like that, so you can kind of get a good understanding of how the game feels and plays properly, not just kind of what we've seen so far, where we've seen like glimpses of him walking down this hill, and then glimpses of him inside with a little bit of gunplay, glimpses kind of outside and a little bit of gunplay, and then a little bit of space combat. So we've seen little slithers of bits in different areas, but we haven't seen like a full-blown section to say, okay, so how does it kind of the moment to moment, how does that work, and how does that feel? I think that's kind of what they'll need to do now. One thing I think they should still try and avoid is too much delving into the story and kind of talking too much about the story. There's one thing I hate about a lot of gameplay reveals and things like that, is when they kind of go through it to the point where you're just like, well, I don't really need to play the game now because you've showed us that much about the game. I know exactly what's going to happen. I know exactly what's like the entire thing. So, and with a game like Starfield, where it very much relies on the story and the character building and who you meet and the factions and things like that and how that plays out, I think they should kind of try and still avoid that where they can. I think they still need to talk about the story a little bit, because even now, when you talk about the factions and how the factions play out and what the kind of backstory is about the factions, a lot of people don't know that or haven't really paid attention to some of these things to the point where you tell them, oh, well, there's X amount of factions and there's just one world that's like heavily into drugs. This one kind of major drug called Aurora that kind of they're all kind of addicted to over in this like water planet, and kind of all that stuff, and how all those go together, and these two factions that were at massive at war, and now they've kind of at this peace level, but it's in this kind of teetering on the edge kind of phase, but nobody really knows any of that. That's one thing they need to kind of really go into a little bit more and say, okay, well, this is.
Can I ask you a question, Dutch?
Yeah,
I don't mean to cut you off. I greatly apologize, Dutch, but I want to kind of, before I lose it, do you think that the game is so big it's going to be difficult in a short, even a 30-minute period of time, right? Like if we just look at what it's it's probably the most ambitious game the entire year, right? So I would argue.
Yeah, that's exactly why I say I think they need to show off for like a little side quest and then like trim that a bit, like we would have to do for like trying to show gameplay off to somebody or do something for a podcast, something like that. You can't do the entire thing because it would take too much time, and you don't want to lose people's focus. So you kind of have to go, okay, well, we'll do this and we'll do this. Like people's vlogs, for instance, if someone just did a vlog for the entire 2-week duration of the holiday that they were on, you wouldn't watch it. So instead, what they do is they cut that vlog down into like a 15-minute episode, and they're like, okay, well, this, and you get a really good idea, and it's fun, and you get a good understanding of what happened, and so on and so forth. And that's what they need to do for like a side quest.
Yeah.
So get like an hour long or or a 45-minute long side quest, and then you condense that into like a little 15-20 minute gameplay clip or gameplay sequence that you can kind of run through on this demo, where you get a good understanding of how the game feels and the moment-to-moment combat and the characters that you speak to and things like that. So it's kind of a good condensed version of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I completely agree. The game is a juggernaut in terms of its size, and it will be hard to portray anything on videos, which is why we've seen so much of it so far, because a game that's like at least a couple of 100 hours in size, at least, with a main story that lasts at least 40 hours, it's going to be hard to condense that into something that is viable to show on showcases. So
Yeah.
It's a toughie.
Awesome. Well, PTK, as far as what you would like to see, what are some of the things you would like to see in the developer direct that would speak to you as far as what you want to see out of the gameplay or a particular system or mission or style of play? What would you like to see?
I think the highlight for everybody, most people want to see what the game looks like, what the game runs like. We just heard recently that it essentially has helped them almost overhaul like their their combat system, the way the guns work, things like that. So from the little trailer that we got, when they announced the release date, all the gameplay in the background, I'd like to see if that matches, because it looked incredibly smooth. It looked good. It looked like it was running at 60. I don't know about you, Dutch, but it looked like it was running to 60 in my opinion, right? So I think obviously that's going to be. Oh well, okay. But but obviously we'll have to wait and see if we get confirmation if that is the case. But I think, and I know Pong's mentioned this too. This is one of the issues with Bethesda games. This is part of the detraction of greatness from Bethesda. Sometimes Todd reaches so far that there's no possible way to get the full experience until you get the game in your hand. And sometimes that doesn't come across in a showcase, because you can't possibly show everybody everything that would excite them in a condensed amount of time. The game is so large, so ambitious. So I think they focus on some highlights. I think they focus on some of the obvious questions most of us are going to have. Gameplay. Can we fly? Can we land on every planet? Like, all of those questions need to be answered. I think it's enough time to answer the question. Maybe they just show you flying somewhere and then boom, you land. Maybe they show us land in some random place, the size of the actual map, universe, like how you traverse around. I'd love to see the crew building, because you're going to have a ship. You got to hire people. They told us you can hire people on your ship. Are you going to be able to hire enough people to have 2-3 ships, maybe a full fleet? Is it that extensive? Things like that. Maybe we won't get those, because those are maybe really detailed, but maybe they touch into that as well. I think they'll dive a lot into the customization of your character, the personality traits, your origin, lineage, things like that. I think they'll touch on it. I'd like to see that as well, because that looked incredibly interesting, and that actually has an influence on the story, I believe, right, Dutch? All of those little character traits have an influence on your character and their interaction with other characters, and like actually what happens in game. So how is all of that going to translate? And so this is the biggest question for me is, how are they going to condense all of that down and pick and choose what's going to make sense in a half an hour? So I think they focus on some of those larger questions, right? The gameplay, is it match what we saw last time? Is it running at 60? If not 60, is it a lock third? Whatever, right? Some of the worlds, right? I love to see, because some people have this idea that it's just, No Man's Sky is going to be a bunch of random stuff. You're going to get a bunch of empty planets where there's nothing, these small areas. Like, are we going to be able to land anywhere, go to a city, then go from a city to what we see in the distance and go from there to somewhere? You know what I mean? Like those types of things. So I think for me, those are some of the questions I'd like for them to answer. But just the main thing for me would really just be shipbuilding and being able to hire your crew. I think those are really interesting to me. The shipbuilding is big too. A lot of people, we talked about Zelda and them being able to build phalluses, right? So I'm curious to see how far, are they going to let people go? Are we going to be able to make like real life ships like Millennium Falcons? And maybe we won't get that until mods later on, but I really want to see the shipbuilding too. That's a highlight for me.
Awesome. Yeah, the whole fleet thing, that's one of the big things I'm hoping that they show, or at least that'll be one of the first things I try, I think, once I get into the game. Palm, I saved you for last. I know you have probably a 20-point checklist of
No.
things you'd like to see, but
I don't even know what game we're talking about. What is this, Starfield?
Oh,
I have
come
no idea.
considering the developer direct, let's say it's just a half hour that Todd has to squeeze everything in. What are some of the key things that you'd like to see him display in that time frame?
My God. Listen. Yeah. This is a hard one here because again, the way
It's not hard, Pong. It's not hard. You just want him to come out and say it
Yes.
just works.
Everything.
Well, no,
It
yeah,
works.
I want him to come out and say it's available right now, today. Pong Soul, he can download it right now. Here's what- So I know what I'd like to see, right? I'd like to see a deep dive of all the mechanics, right? I'd love to see more because in the announcement of the direct and the announcement of the release date, Todd, in that video said we've squeezed so much into this game and we can't hardly believe it, and we've got so much more to show you, right? Those were some of his lines from that video. And so for me, I want to see a deep dive on the crafting. I want to see a deep dive on the base building, the ship building. I want the deep dive on the RPG mechanics that they're bringing back, the influence over the conversations with the point system. I'd love to see that and how that's going to work. But, and this is a big but, my wants aren't exactly what Todd does at these.
Mhm.
What they generally do, and to, Dutch's point, they're not going to deep dive the story very much anymore. I think they've given us enough glimpses. There's enough YouTube channels that have already put some pieces together potentially. I think they've done a great job of doing that already. They might give us another little tidbit, but I think what they're going to do here and what Todd likes to do is exactly what Dutch said, which is show us a mission. Right? It's probably not, maybe it's an early mission in the main line, maybe it's a big side mission, but I think they do run a mission, and I think that mission is going to take us from land to space, travel somewhere, then land again, and then go see one of the cities or something like that, and run a mission. Maybe get out. Maybe one of the outposts, not one of the major cities, but one of the outposts, and then get out into the wild so that we can see what these planets are going to look like, right? And how we're going to see, nature and the creatures out there behave and act and that kind of thing. And that's what Todd likes to do. That's what he did for Fallout 3. You go back to the Fallout 3 presentation. It's grainy, it's old, it's barely there because back then people didn't have tech like we do now. But if you go back and watch that, that's what they did for Fallout 3. And when Fallout 3 dropped and released, that's when everybody realized how big it was. Of course, everybody was shocked to see Fallout looking the way it did, right? Because that was the first time Fallout had been taken to first person in a Bethesda open world. But at the same time, nobody knew what that game was going to be until they got their hands on it. And then everybody realized, oh my God, this is so much bigger. Oh my God, I can't believe they did all this. Holy cow, right? And that's when it started blowing up. And that's what's going to happen with Starfield. Because again, as much as we now know about Bethesda, as much as we now understand the open world sandbox that they create, that they love us to go and just do whatever we want to in, Starfield's on a whole nother scope. Starfield is a brand new IP. They are introducing new mechanics. They've got a brand new updated engine and Creation Engine 2.0 that this will be the first game on it. Like, there's so many firsts for this that's what's going to be the big deal. And I don't think they're going to take away a lot of the surprises that we're in store for until release day. I think they're going to save a lot of it. As much as I want to see all of it, I think they're going to save that because that's what's going to make this game special. When the reviewers start getting their hands on it, when we get our hands on it, and all of a sudden
I can't wait, Pone.
yeah, and everybody, because I do still believe that they are holding back. I do believe that Todd's learned from some of his past times where he has done his best Peter Molyneux and promised some big things. And while they didn't quite hit there, they went up and beyond what had already been done. I think this time around, I think he's holding back a little bit. And I think when this game drops, there's going to be more here than we ever expected. And I truly believe that with 1,000 Worlds and to go explore, I think there's going to be more than some of us, even us big Bethesda fans, are hoping for. And I think that that's going to be the surprise. And everybody's going to turn around and say, oh, this is why you did not build this game for 25 years. Oh, Todd, now we get it. This is why you couldn't make this game until now. Because you're doing things that we didn't, that would probably not have been possible previous gens, right? So I think that that's where the big surprise is going to come. Whatever they do, it's not enough for me here. Unlike Dutch, I would want Todd to play it from start to finish during the presentation.
The entire thing, just 100
and he's
hours.
dead serious too, Dutch. He's dead serious. He means that with his whole heart, I promise.
Yes, I would stay up for the entire thing while Todd played through it. I would love it. But obviously that's not going to
drip. You've just got to drip with water. And,
yes. Correct. That's what I would do.
Good. Ready to go.
But no, again, as long as they have a focused mission that does show off a lot of the new mechanics that they've already talked about, the flight mechanics, maybe even a space battle with pirates in there, somewhere in there, whatever the case may be, if they get a good run that gives us a perfect vertical slice of what we can, a small slice, because again, Bethesda games can't be shown in this format. There's nothing until you get your hands on it. Again, 100 hours in, you've barely touched the surface for most people. So there's nothing that can totally put a review on that. But if they give us a really great vertical slice, showing off the new engine, showing off some of the new mechanics, showing off the improvements that we've kind of seen in the clips since the beginning, and they just say, hey, here's close to what the final version is going to look like, and we see that improvement, and then for sure lay out the expectations for the consoles. Again, I've said this previously, my big thing is I want Todd showing it running on the Series X for sure, 100%, like Dutch said, very clearly saying this is Series X, not piece, not like Turn 10 is as good as Turn 10 is, where they say, this is PC, but this is what you can expect on Xbox. I want real Series X gameplay here. And if I had my bigger hope that they also show the Series S version to set those expectations as well, and then say flat out, either it's lock 30 or we do have multiple modes for you guys to choose from to play how you want to play. That has to be explicitly said. Phil said it was going to be done, so I'm definitely expecting that. But that's where I'm at with Starfield. Come on, June 11th. I need you here now. I need to wake up tomorrow and have it be June 11th, please.
I do want to piggyback off of something too.
Yes.
But off of what you said before, you take it back, Fuzz. So another thing too, and I'm glad you kind of mentioned this, Pong. Bethesda's not in the same space anymore, and I'm so excited as this game gets closer and closer. I get more and more excited, even with all the detractors and everybody like Bethesda and everybody, all the people saying that expectations are too high. This game to me has the highest ceiling of any game coming out this year.
Yes,
and I don't really think it's close.
Right.
And we know that Xbox is fully behind this game. They've all hands on deck. Redfield might have suffered because of Starfield. In hindsight, because all hands were on deck for Starfield. Phil come out and said it. We putting all of our resources toward this. We know we got the ABK stuff going, but we need this Starfield to be right.
And now we know it was a little bit more than just engineers as
exactly,
well. So.
Exactly. All hands were on deck. So I'm super excited. And every time they show this thing, I get more and more excited. Another thing we didn't mention too about some of the features, I'm curious about the Stargate things. How are those going to work? You know what I mean?
It's part of the main story.
Yeah.
So I think they're holding that close to the vest, obviously.
Maybe.
I think that's, Mav and I had Skullsy on. Skullsy, for anybody who doesn't know, he's actually developing a game now. But he's working for a studio. But he's a giant Bethesda fan. Great member of this community. Has done tons of videos going all the way back, early days of Bethesda. He really knows his stuff. He had he went to Speculation Town when we had him on PM to PM, and he thinks that possibly could be another big wow moment. You know how the big step out moments that Bethesda loves to have, and Todd already confirmed there's 2 of them. Skullsy thinks there could be an additional one in which we eventually, through the main line, get to those Stargates or start using those Stargates. But when we do it, he with the speculation town, he thinks it might take us to a whole nother place, like a whole kind of alien type world where we step through and all of a sudden you're not in the same universe anymore. And that could be another huge wow moment. Again, just his speculation, just kind of thinking out loud of where he was going with those gates. But he thinks that possibly could be something that really could be something they're holding really close to the vest. And that's going to be the actual step out moment when you go through one of those gates.
So that could happen. Dutch, I want to ask a quick question before we move on here. Just in your opinion, right? What would be a wow moment for you? Like if they get up there in the 30 minutes or however long the time they have, what is something that you think would they would break the internet? Like what was something that Starfield could do? What could they show that would break the internet? I mean, obviously we don't know everything, but just some of the things that we know so far.
Oh God, that's a bit different. I think for me, showing off some of the more extravagant worlds that you can go to would be a wow moment. For instance, we haven't seen even a fraction of some of the different planets in that universe that are fully resolved for exploration. We know I think there's 10 or 15 planets that are there for full exploration, whereas obviously there's 1,000 planets that are like mining planets or things like that you can kind of go to, but aren't fully kind of made up. So I think given a brief example of that underwater planet, for instance, could be mind-blowing. Or just some of these really beautiful landscapes that they've built and that you can kind of traverse and things like that. Maybe even some like a larger scale battle or something that you might be part of. As I've mentioned, you've got these two factions that were previously at war and are now in this kind of no man's land peacetime where they kind of at any moment could break into full scale war. Something like that, something where we see some kind of semi-war going on and everything booting off with multiple factions and things kicking off at the same time. We've seen some of the space battles and they looked really good. But I think some form of kind of war or mini kind of on planet battle would be absolutely epic. It's like an epic set piece, should we say, from them. We haven't seen that in any of their games, really. And I think that would be a step up for them. For something that would be truly special to kind of just add to what Bethesda are already great at in the storytelling. Like a set piece moment. And again, I don't mean like CGI set piece like a lot of games do. I mean like an actual battle from one of the missions or something like that. Like that kind of set piece.
Awesome.
It'd be interesting if they had big space battles, like because we've seen a glimpse of a capital class cruiser spaceship.
Like everything like zooming into place and things like that. Like
that would be dope.
Like whoa.
And it's crazy because I think there's a chance we get a moment right like that. There's an absolute possibility as wary as people are about, Todd and, some of his promises in the past and how people feel emotionally about Bethesda and they've been burned and the expectations haven't really met reality. I absolutely think there's a really great chance we get a moment that's like, whoa, like we're all sitting here falling out of our chair. Like, I think that there is going to be a moment that we have. I really do.
And if Todd doesn't do it, the modders will do it. We'll have space battles one way or the other.
All right, go ahead, Fuzz. My bad.
No, awesome takes on this, and yeah, I think as far as like a big wow moment, it's a cross between seeing some of the procedurally generated planets. Like I fully believe that there's going to be some planets that, even though they're not handcrafted or any maybe major land masses or anything like that on there, you can be on a mountaintop looking out on the horizon and see the sunset or something like that. And it'll be like the perfect, time frame to take like a photo and have like these awesome, sunsets or sunrises or just, tremendously like amazing things, like maybe like floating land masses or like different gravity levels on certain planets or like the electric storms on some. I think just hitting some of those random planets, I think is going to, before we even get to mods, I think that's just going to be like an amazing, experience just going across those, seeing what life might be on there, the different fauna or whatever you want to call them, as far as the creatures on that planet. I want to see how that all pans out, as far as if you just pick any of the procedurally generated ones. But also want to see what some of the cities are like. Like I've been watching some of the trailers of Starfield, and also watching a lot of like Star Citizen. And I know, they're not the same game or trying to do the same things, but I can imagine that there are going to be some overlaps as far as like some of the vastness of what you see in like a Star Citizen, but playable on console. I think this is going to be above and beyond that, with more story and stuff that you're going to want to pursue or try and whatnot. Like, I know we were talking earlier about the whole Tears of the Kingdom stuff, but I totally see some people turning either like a crashed or shot down spaceship into like a base, or having parts of it as a base, or vice versa, taking some of the maybe some of the things they find on a planet and turning that into parts for a ship or something like that. So
Yeah,
I can't wait. But man, awesome thoughts on that. Didn't want to try to keep it short, so I do apologize.
no, it's
I
all good.
know Wandering Dutch has it's late over
It's
there,
like
so
5 a.m. over there, so we're gonna get him to bed here. Yeah.
But that's all I got. Man,
I don't
thanks.
mind.
Awesome. Thank you for being a trooper, Dutch. Appreciate it. But great topic for us. Definitely had to get the Starfield stuff in, and I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show on that note, man. But it's been a phenomenal show. Great topics, great guests. And shout out to chat, man. You guys are awesome. Seen some new faces in here. So once again, hit the like button, subscribe if you guys enjoy the content. Come back and hang out with us next week. It's like this every week, I promise. It gets better every single week. New guests on. Sometimes it's just the three of us rocking out, but we always try and put on the best show for you guys, and we always have a good time, man. We're gonna get Dutch to bed here, man. But first, I got to give another quick shout out to you, Dutch. Thank you, brother, for hanging out with us. Pretty long show, but loved every single second of it, bro. Once again, when you're on here once, you like family, Dutch. You never know when I'll send up that bat signal to see if you want to come back on the show. But I love having you on, bro. Shout out to you, the whole entire team at Midweek Mix Up. You're doing amazing work, and I can't wait till you overtake the Keeleys, man. We need that to happen. I can't wait till we get that show, man. But I appreciate you, man. But everybody know where they can find you, Dutch.
Yeah. Again, thank you for having us. I don't mind about the time. Like I say, it's with it being a weekend, it's a lot easier to manage. It's those during the week times that for both of us, it's hard to kind of get each other on shows midweek, because when we're doing a show which is 7 o'clock PM our time, it's like middle of the day for you guys, so you're at work. And when again you're doing shows in the middle of the day, if you've got a day off or something like that, then it's kind of where it's nighttime for us, or we're at work. It's, it's mad. So it's great to be able to jump in on a weekend, and of course I can have a lie-in today. I was going to say tomorrow, but it's today now, so I'll have a little bit of a lie-in when I go to bed. But no, it's great. So thanks for having us. It's been a blast. Much appreciated. And of course, you guys can find me everywhere at Wandering Dutch. Of course, we're on all audio platforms now as well, so you'll catch the podcasts on any platform you wish to listen to it on. And of course, we have our second indie showcase in September, 23rd of September to be precise. We've already got a couple of awesome content creators lined up for that one as well. ACG, Lord Cognito, Miles Dompierre, and who else? Oh yes, Mr. Joe Badbit is also lined up so far, and a few others in the works, and also a special guest which I can't name as yet, because of course that lines up along with the likes of Gamescom, etc. So it's a wait and see, get everything ironed out close at the time type of moment. But appreciate it again. Thanks for having us on.
Not a problem, man. And you guys know what to do. We roll out the red carpet for the guests here at the Shop Podcast. All Dutch's information, all links are down in the description of the video. Please go click on that, go follow, go support quality work, true integrity over there. And once again, if you haven't gotten a chance to watch that last indie showcase, do yourself a favor and go watch it, because that's how a good show is done. So shout out to you, Dutch. Appreciate it, man, hanging out with us, man. And once again, guys, it won't be the last time you guys see Dutch on the show. And I definitely got to make my way over there to Midweek Mix Up anytime soon. I'm actually free like until pretty much the end of June. So like for any
Nice.
time. So hit me up, Dutch, if you need me to come on the show. Let me know. I got a bunch of free time as of right now. But thank you for
Awesome.
coming on, bro. Awesome to have you. And let me throw this over to my two right hand men once again. Another great show. These men make me look good every single week, and we're gonna throw it over to you, Pong. We locked in over here, man. Another great show, another great panel, man. Another great guest.
That's what we do here. Every Saturday night, right here on the Shop Podcast. We just crush it. You guys come in here again. Love to see the chat building. Love to see the new faces in here. So thank you all for coming out and supporting us. Again, the growth for PTK has been absolutely spectacular, long overdue. But that's a testament to Blam's perseverance. And of course, all of you starting to show up and realizing that we have just a nice, chill show where we have great conversations. We laugh here, but PTK does an amazing job having a guest on and bringing the topics and doing all the good stuff. So again, hats off to you, Blam, for everything that's going on.
Thank you, sir.
Big shout out, big shout out to Wandering Dutch, brother from another, showing up here. I've gotten to finally do a couple shows with him, which is rare now. I used to hop on midweek's mix up all the time. I used to be in the chat all the time. I won like 1 million things from those guys before I was podcasting.
Yeah, like every week. It was like Tom's was winning everything.
That's all.
You're running the bots over there, huh?
Yeah, I was. That was before Dutch and I knew each other, right? That was before I was podcasting. So
nice.
It was amazing back in the day during the pandemic when I had all my free time. But no, it's great to have Dutch on here. And Dutch, thanks again for dealing with the time zone. Even if you say it's easy, it's never easy, sir. It does screw up things when you do take this when you stay awake this long. So thank you for being here, brother, and great thoughts tonight as always. Listen, everybody, you can find me Pongsoul on Xbox, Pongsoul on Twitter. You guys all know the drill there. Every Tuesday, it's Double Barrel Gaming. That's the channel. Mr. Boomstick is the man. It's Xbox Factor Podcast. Again, even though I can't be there anymore, I'm still part of that show. And again, it's got a special place for me because that's one of the shows I started out on over at Double Barrel Gaming. So go check out Mr. Boomstick if you aren't already. 5 days a week, but Tuesdays are all good things green, 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 o'clock Central Time. And then Thursday nights when the podcasting starts for me, and that's PM in the PM, Pong and Mav in the PM, of course, over on the Fun Speculation Network. Fun Speculation is the channel. Mav is the man. He gives me the chair, as crazy as that sounds, on Thursday nights. So I am in the lead. But we have a good time on Thursday nights. 2-man show, unless we do have a guest from time to time. That starts at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 o'clock Central Time, where you're going to get a lot of good conversation. Me and Mav go back and forth. We get the chat involved. Just a fun time on Thursday nights. And then Friday nights, it's back on Fun Speculation for Xbox Ultimate. We get a bigger panel going. Fuzzy's included in that one. We have a lot of laughs. We go sideways all the time. Mav tried to extend the show last night by a half hour by talking about food, for God's sakes. Like, listen, we don't know what we're going to do there, but we have a great time. We laugh, but we also talk a lot of gaming. So be there for Xbox Ultimate on Friday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 o'clock Central Time. And then Saturday mornings, it's living split screen with myself, my brother from another, Steel Rain. We get your Saturday started right, and you got to show up. You got to tell a friend and bring a friend. Check us out, 2-man show. We go 3+ hours. Look, I told Steele this morning that I could only go 3 hours because I had a ton of stuff to do. And then I said, but it's not a hard stop. Like, if we go over, that's fine, whatever. So Steele, we're going through we started our intros and talked for an hour and a half on stuff, right? That's what we do there. We still wound up with nearly a 4-hour show today. So that's how Steele and I roll on Saturdays. We'll start your morning. We'll get you into the afternoon. We're at 820. We're on mission 1K. We want to get to that 1K mark. So please check us out. 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 o'clock Central Time, living split screen. Split screen's all one word. And then I'll be back here, God willing, next weekend for the Shop Podcast with 2 of my favorite people in this community, Mr. PTK, Blam, and Fuzzy, right here. Thank you all for being here again. Nothing but love and respect. It's the golden age of gaming, people. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Server slams on. Go download it now. Play some Diablo. Drop the Tears of the Kingdom. Anyways, have a great one and play what you love what you play. I'm going to talk to y'all real soon. Thanks, PTK.
Awesome, man. Shout out to you, Pong. Once again, the Duracell Battery at the Shop Podcast here. The easiest way to keep up with Pong is just go to Twitter, follow him. You'll be able to keep up everything he's doing all week. The man is all over the place. You never know where he's going to show up. So shout out to you, Pong. Appreciate you bringing that energy every single week, brother. And we're going to throw this over to you, Mr. Fuzzy Belvedere, man. Another great show, great guest, man.
Yeah, this was awesome. It's always awesome hearing Wander and Dutch's thoughts and views on games. And like, yeah, definitely check out the indie showcase that he has on his channel. It's definitely well worth the watch. A lot of great games. Some of them wind up in Game Pass day and date, as well as some other ones that are on the horizon here soon as well. But always love having you on the show, man. Gotta have you back
Appreciate it.
here at some point.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
definitely.
we'll allow you to get more sleep next time. But
You're right.
thank you for sticking with it and being a trooper with us, man. Greatly appreciate it, and always love doing the show with you, Pong and PTK. It's pretty much, this is my favorite hobby, and always loved just talking about it and talking games and stuff. But for those of you in the chat, greatly appreciate you checking us out, or those that'll catch us on replay. If you want to hear any of my rambles or rants on anything gaming related, just follow me on Twitter at fuzzy_Belvedere. You can also find me on the Xbox Lunch Break Special Monday at 12 noon on Double Barrel Gaming with Mr. Boomstick, Crazy Louie, and Web Dave. And then later on that evening on FSP on Fun Speculations channel with Mav, Psychonauts, Jasper, and 3-Bit. Look forward to seeing you guys there. And then right back here Saturday at 8 p.m. No, I'm sorry, 9 p.m. Eastern time on the Shop Podcast on PTK Blam's channel. So look forward to seeing you right there.
Awesome. And shout out to you, Fuzz. You guys go follow Fuzz, man. You love cars, go follow Fuzz. But if you just love a nice, smooth voice, we're still trying to get that ASMR album out for Fuzz. We need that ASAP for sure. But shout out to you, Fuzz. Appreciate you. Always consistent on the show, man. You're my brother. Thank you so much. And last but not least here, PTK Blam everywhere. Find me everywhere at that on Twitter, Xbox Live. If you want to come play some games, hit me up there. Add me. I will be on a Diablo Slam tonight because I haven't gotten even to touch it. I've downloaded, but I ain't got to play it. So I'm playing tonight for sure. So hit me up there if you want to play. But once again, shout out to chat. You guys are amazing. Bunch of new faces, and the channel is continuing to grow. Been doing this a long time, and I greatly appreciate the continued support every single week. And we do the best we can to make the show the best product that we can put out. But thank you guys so much. You make it easy. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Have a great weekend. Play some games. Be safe. Peace out, everybody.
Later.